So it all starts with this random dude sprinting into a temple. Dude's yelling that they need to bail immediately because some nightmare of a dude is coming their way. The man inside asks who the hell he's talking about, and this scared guy says that the butcher the vampire killer. And apparently, he's rolling up with an army of undead ready to delete the entire Dark Order from existence in the most brutal way possible. The man just smiles and asks what there is to worry about. After all, they've got the best holy knights protecting them. Our terrified guy is freaking out. He told this guy that those knights have been turned into his zombies, and they're headed straight for the temple. Cut to our main character, who's standing there with this creepy-ass smile, using magic to send his undead army forward. The two guys in the temple see the shadows approaching and immediately realize they're completely screwed. The zombies break through, charging inside, and both guys are on their knees begging for mercy. Our protagonist casually strolls in while the man's having an existential crisis, wondering how zombies that were supposed to serve them are now trying to murder them. The protagonist steps on the guy's hand, and the man starts whining about how God is on their side and will grant them salvation. Our boy puts a gun to his head and goes, "Yeah, salvation's coming all right from me." The man's crying now, feeling divine energy or whatever, and the protagonist just coldly says God's blessing is going to lead them straight to hell. Now we rewind a bit. People have been gossiping about the 7th prince getting exiled, calling it a massive disgrace to the Holy Empire. Apparently, this guy was such a disaster that people were genuinely asking how someone this awful was even born into royalty. The rumors? Oh man, they're juicy. Word on the street is that this prince harassed the archbishop's daughter and got caught red-handed. When he was supposed to face punishment, he threw a tantrum and trashed the archbishop's hall. The Holy Emperor finally had enough and shipped his ass off to the land of dead spirits to reflect on his actions. But instead of self-reflecting, our boy tried to off himself after getting rejected by some girl. And here's where it gets weird. After the suicide attempt, he became a completely different person. Started living this humble life in a monastery, and suddenly everyone's obsessed with him. But naturally, people are suspicious as hell. Some think a demon possessed him. Others say he made a deal with the devil. There are even rumors he's been hanging out with dead people around the monastery. We see the protagonist now confirmed to be in this prince's body, standing in front of some zombies when a system window pops up with all of his info. He's staring at this window like, why does this keep showing up? He then turns to the zombies and says that those rumors must have started because the villagers must have seen them. If this keeps up, he's going to get accused of being a heretic, which is basically a death sentence in this world. Then he gets into his monologue of how he used to be just some regular Korean dude living his life, but then suddenly he wakes up in the body of the Holy Emperor's disaster of a grandson right after the original Alan tried to commit suicide. And now he's got this system window following him around and necromancer abilities that let him control the dead. He's been using these powers to maintain the cemetery, but everyone thinks he's practicing dark magic. At first, he was completely lost, but now he's kind of vibing with it. Maybe it's time to retire from the zombie management business, though. The zombies have been working hard, ones digging holes, another's doing gravedigger duties, and they're placing tombstones like a well-oiled machine. Alan tells them with a smile that it's been a glorious day. The zombies are happy to hear this, looking at him all proud. But then he says that maybe it's time to say goodbye. The zombies are not having it. They start glaring at him, and Alan tries to calm them down. He picks up a shovel and says they seem pretty furious right now. He admits his first life was wild, but he's trying to live this second life more peacefully. He walks up to them and says that since they've gotten close, he'll think about it some more. All 3 zombies immediately give him a thumbs up. Man, these zombies are hilariously cute. Alan says, cool, let's get back to work then. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, 2 guys are walking around. One asks if the other heard something, but the guy pulling a cart full of corpses tells him to shut up unless he wants to end up like the dead bodies he's hauling. They need to get to the prince quickly as he is the only one who could save this damned village. Looking at the corpse, our boy asks the 2 men if these are the last corpses they've got. The 2 guys confirm it, saying, yeah, that's all of them. Everyone else in the village either bailed or ended up 6 feet under. Then one of the guys gets all awkward and asks if Alan could possibly, pretty please come with them to the village. Alan looks at them and goes, why the hell would I do that? The men explain that basically the entire village is dead, and they figure they'd be way safer hanging around the prince. They think the only reason they haven't kicked the bucket yet is because they've been visiting Alan regularly while hauling corpses around. Alan's thinking to himself that the original blasphemer prince definitely didn't have any special protection powers, and he's getting real tired of these guys grabbing onto him and begging. They're literally clinging to him, asking what happens if they get sick too. They're convinced he's their lucky charm or something. Alan's got this serious look on his face, thinking there's been a massive misunderstanding here. But before he can clear things up, they're already dragging him to the village. When they arrive, Alan's walking ahead, saying the place looks creepy as hell. One of the guys says that the drains aren't working anymore, so he should watch where he steps. Alan spins around and yells at them to stop, literally hanging off him like he's a security blanket. Then someone runs past them in the shadows, and Alan mutters that if he were them, he'd be checking on their house instead of following him around. He hears something and asks what that noise was. The guy tries to play it cool, saying it's probably just a rat. Alan heads into this dark alley, saying he'll check everything out, and the men immediately panic, yelling that he can't go alone. But nah, our boy keeps walking, thinking he's got a really bad feeling about this. There's definitely a murderous aura in the air, and he's pretty sure he's not imagining it. Suddenly, there's a loud sound and he spins around to see a rat that popped out of a hole in the wall. He's about to say something when he notices the rat staring at him with glowing red eyes. The rat makes this horrible screech and suddenly a whole swarm of them comes pouring out of the hole like a nightmare waterfall. They're all running straight at Alan and he's yelling, "What the hell is this?" While realizing these are zombie rats and probably what killed everyone in the village, he starts flailing his arms around and shouts that the settlement died because of these furry little bastards. In a panic, he slams his shovel into the ground, releasing magical energy. The rats stop and Alan's genuinely surprised that worked. But then the rats start gathering around their dead buddies and making these loud angry noises. They all charge at him and Alan's screaming that he didn't mean to kill them. This wasn't intentional and please don't murder him. The rats swarm him and he falls to the ground, dropping his shovel into a puddle behind him. The shovel starts glowing from the magical energy and Alan's yelling at these freaks to stop trying to kill him. Then the water from the puddle starts flowing toward him, and the system announces he just used a skill called Swamp of Death. So now he is just sitting there thinking to himself, what the hell just happened? The two guys run up asking where all these rats came from, but then they notice something weird. The dirty puddle water turned into holy water. How did he do that? Did he just purify the rats? They must have been spreading the disease. Alan reaches for his shovel, thinking he just discovered he can use skills other than raising zombies. His necromancer abilities got sanctified because his body has holy power from being the Holy Emperor's grandson. So basically, he's a holy necromancer, which explains why his zombie employees are so nice and helpful. Man, even the undead appreciate good management and divine benefits. Then this girl shows up, and our boys turn to these two idiots, asking them if they didn't tell them that no one else lives in this village besides them. These two idiots go, "Hey, no worries, she's our next-door neighbor," and start waving at her all friendly, telling her to come over. But Charlotte's got a knife hidden behind her back. In an instant, she had taken care of the two idiots and was about to delete our boy. He barely blocks it with his shovel, struggling to hold her off while thinking, is she a zombie? He manages to push her away, noticing she's still holding the knife, which means she hasn't completely turned yet. Charlotte's doing her standard zombie thing, and then she starts asking where her mom and dad are. She charges him again. This time she manages to overpower him, so he falls to the ground, but then his divine powers activate once again, and just the contact from him is burning away Charlotte's skin. Just then he figures out a plan and he pushes her to the holy water. She starts screaming in pain, but our boy is telling her to endure it because there's no other way to cure her. He holds her in the holy water while she screams. After a while, she stops screaming. Then we cut to some time after passes and a bunch of villagers show up at the building. This old man says they heard Alan cleared out all the rats and apparently saved that girl Charlotte. He wants to ask for Alan's help too. Alan's just sitting there flipping through a book with a completely done expression on his face. Then he closes the book and turns to the villagers, saying that girl died. The villagers are standing there all surprised, asking if Charlotte seriously died, and Alan just calmly asks how the hell he's supposed to save people anyway. Sure, he's got the Holy Emperor's blood, but he's got zero actual powers. The villagers get all sad, asking what they should do. They came all this way hoping he could help. Alan's like, who even told you I save people? But before he can finish, this dude comes running in yelling that Charlotte woke up, and it's all thanks to Alan. The villagers immediately side-eye him like, bro, you just lied to our faces. Alan looks away, all annoyed, saying he doesn't care. Then he stands up, saying fine, he's got a bit of divine power, so maybe he can help. But there's a condition. A system window pops up above this old man Parlock, 75 years old, skilled in dialogue, gardening, and tricks. Oh, and he's full of doubts. Alan's reading this, thinking it's pretty interesting. He can see everything about people. This old geezer wants help, but doesn't trust him because of his trash reputation. Our boy shamelessly lays out his terms. He's not doing charity work. He needs cash and food, and they have to rebuild this cathedral for free. Man, Lloyd would be so proud right now using a shovel, asking for money, exploiting people. That's peak Lloyd behavior right there. The villagers are shocked, asking if they really have to rebuild the whole thing. Alan says their lives depend on it, but if they don't want to, Parlock immediately raises his hand, saying he agrees. But nah, our boy's not done. He adds another condition. Everyone's jaws drop like there's more, and this shameless bastard tells them to keep everything secret from the Holy Knights. The villagers are thinking this dude's clearly ripping them off, but what choice do they have? After they leave, Alan's grinning, thinking about how those 30 corpses turn into zombies. But zombies love him, so he can handle this easily. He starts looking for equipment, grabs a pitchfork and his shovel, and then asks if they really expected him to fight alone. They can do the hard work while he reads prayers. The villagers stare at him, calling him a demon, when suddenly people start running around screaming that zombies are coming. Cut to this massive horde of zombies heading toward the village. Alan sees them and goes, "You call this 30? He turns to Parlock, and this old bastard admits he lied about the numbers. But there's no time to beat up an old man, so Alan focuses on the battle. He starts cracking zombie skulls left and right when his skill activates. His shovel creates holy water, and the system announces the Death Swamp skill. He's thinking using skills isn't hard since he was a necromancer before. Back in his old life, he was a beta tester for some game, chose the necromancer class, died from electric shock, and woke up in this body. Lucky for him, the game's skills came with him. The divine power changed his body, but it's hard to control every time he uses his skill. Power just leaks everywhere. While he's dealing with this, some dumbass is crying, saying he can't do it anymore. His zombie wife walks up to him and he's like, how can I kill her? She's about to touch his face when Alan runs up and just kicks her to the ground. The husband yells for his wife and Alan gets annoyed, saying she's already dead, so stop talking nonsense. The guy starts cursing him out, asking what he knows. Alan points his shovel at the wife, yelling to look at her body's rotting, soul's gone. If he wants her to keep suffering, he can run. If not, stop crying and start fighting. Then a zombie attacks Alan from behind and he's genuinely caught off guard. He looks up, seeing someone jumping down, landing in the street and slamming the ground so hard it cracks everything. She turns around, asking if he's alright. It's Charlotte. She woke up and started remembering the past autumn and winter were infection seasons. She thought it was over and next year they'd be fine. She believed her mom's words. Then Charlotte ran into the house all scared, yelling about rats with red eyes in the street. She walks in and the whole place is covered in blood. She remembered how her zombie dad just bit her mom. Her mom's trembling, crying, and telling Charlotte to run. She remembered being in shock, calling for her mom, shaking and backing away slowly. She remembers her mom turning into a zombie too and staring at her with these angry eyes. And she remembers not remembering anything after that. And the last thing she could remember was street rats and her own parents were chasing her. She tried defending herself with whatever she could grab. Next thing she knows, she's covered in blood sitting by a wall next to a window. Her eyes start turning red and she notices the village people are acting weird. The rats that were trying to eat her suddenly stop caring about her. She's thinking she's becoming one of them now. Doesn't matter though, nobody's coming to save her anyway. She starts crying, wishing just one person would save her. That's when she met Alan, who actually did save her. Then we cut to the present. Charlotte wakes up in a room breathing heavily from this terrible dream. She's wondering who she is and how she got these memories. Some girl walks up saying the prince asked her to take care of her. There are zombies outside, so she better stay quiet. Charlotte looks out the window and hears Alan yelling at someone to stop crying and start killing. Someone warns the prince he's being attacked from behind. She looks worried, opens the window wide, and is about to jump. The girl's like, what are you doing? Charlotte jumps anyway, punches the ground, and thinks she's going to save them. Later, Alan's looking at something super annoyed, saying this can't be real. He's staring at this pile of defeated zombies, asking how she handled them alone. He looks at the villagers praising Charlotte and thinks they should be thanking him more. It seems like the purification before she turned into a zombie affected her somehow. He doesn't even know what kind of ability she has. Alan walks up to the villagers, saying they need to deal with their relatives' remains. He knows they're tired, but it's better this way they suffered, and he freed them from pain. The people start crying, saying they'll help with the ritual. Our boy then begins the ritual. While doing that, he is thinking to himself that it's actually pretty simple. You bury the dead and wish them peace so their spirits don't wander around, they can finally rest. That's exactly why he got banished here in the first place. He looked up at the sky, thinking that in the spirit lands themselves, there's a super high chance of zombies appearing everywhere. Someone had to deal with all these dead bodies. Alan calls the elder over, asking if everything was calm in the village. Did you notice anything strange? Parlock says nothing like that. The infection started spreading about a month ago. Alan says this means it's probably planned. He's about to mention a necromancer, but can't finish because the villagers freak out, asking him if he is talking about those murderers who spread infection. Those same bastards who capture the soul of the dead for eternity are listening to all this hatred. Our boy covers his ears, thinking he doesn't want to discuss this. As he was walking towards his house, he was thinking about how whoever's controlling the zombies should be nearby. But how does he find them? He waves, saying he's going to sleep and they should handle the rest. The villagers thank him for what he did. Alan goes to his room, saying he used to be a simple worker. He lies down on his bed and immediately starts falling asleep, thinking he needs rest because the funeral was exhausting. The next morning, Alan wakes up because someone's shouting loud as hell. He opens the window, asking what happened so early. The villager surprises him by yelling that the zombies kidnapped a man. Our boy turns, asking these idiots if what he just heard was actually true. One guy nodded and the second bastard agreed, saying they saw it with their own eyes. The zombies took advantage while the villagers were dead tired after a sleepless night. Then people spotted a zombie straight up running away with a person who was screaming for help. They were yelling for Morianne. Our boy asked who the hell she even was. The guy explained she was this young herb collector who used to help the villagers a lot, especially patching up the wounded. Alan wasn't even listening and just asked if he knew her. This question made the guys uncomfortable, and one of them said she was beautiful and had rejected the prince before. Our boy got embarrassed, thinking, are they seriously bringing this up again? The guy mentioned that from such an insult, the prince almost hanged himself. Alan cut him off, saying he already remembered, so they should shut the hell up about it. The guy said they need to form a search party and go find her. Alan's thinking, are these idiots only worried because she's hot? But whatever, he needs to check this out anyway, since it's the first time he's seen a zombie actually steal a person. He needs to figure out what's going on. He asked calmly if they can track them. The guy said Gantz might be able to help. Our boy said they should get moving and tell that hunter to be ready. As he was getting ready to leave, he spotted Charlotte standing nearby. She was looking at him, and he was wondering if she's got beef with him. Though he decided not to think about it and headed to the cave, yelling they should hurry because if they waste time, she might turn into zombie dinner. While heading there, he was thinking to himself how tracking those undead bastards won't be that difficult because these dum-dums drag their feet on the ground. Cut to the front of the cave, our boy praises the hunter, while these two idiots were saying how this place feels so cold. Now standing in front of the cave, our boy is thinking about how the cave seems to be emanating this nasty demonic energy. It's totally possible this place is crawling with zombies, or maybe it's ground zero for the infection. Although there are places where demonic energy naturally pools up. But judging by how these zombies are acting, someone's definitely pulling the strings. Then our boy turns and casually asks if they should just torch this place. The guy freaked out, saying that Morian was still inside the cave. Alan turned to him saying, "Yeah, but it's dark as hell in here. In places like this, undead buffs go through the roof. If everyone charges in for one woman, they're all going to die." The guy's asking how they're supposed to save her then. Alan said they need better prep and should head back. Of course, that means Morian's chances of being alive drop hard. He heard this loud, so now he is standing there confused as hell, asking about what the hell that was. The man got the shock of his life seeing this massive bear right in his face. This monster chomped down on his shoulder. The bear dragged Alan with it and threw him off the cliff. As he was falling down, our boy realized this bear is dead too. He waved his shovel, activating his skill. He splashed the bear with holy water, and this bastard screamed from the pain. Then he activated another skill, a horrible curse. He started healing, cursing that he used all of his divine power earlier, so now he doesn't have much to use on himself. But nah, the bear was in no mood to let him even have that. The bear stomped towards him, making all this noise. He looked at the monster, and the system popped up with all of his info, and this damn thing's stats were buffed by necromancy. Looking at it, our boy is thinking, no wonder my holy water didn't work on it. Then he suddenly realizes something. If some necromancer is controlling this thing, that's bad news. How's he supposed to take down a bear with his bare hands? The bear rushed in fast, trying to chomp his face off, but our boy dodged. The bear swung his paw for round 2, but didn't land it because Charlotte dove from above and stabbed a knife into its eye. This bastard started screaming. Alan's thinking, did she seriously follow him? Whatever, it doesn't matter right now. He yelled her name, telling her to pin the bear down. But then the bear threw her on the ground and was this close to eating her face off, but she somehow was able to bring her knife forward, driving it into the thing's skull. Then our boy comes rushing in, sending that bastard away. He stuck his hand out, thanking her for buying him time to get his skills back. She reached out too, saying she should thank him. Charlotte noticed it was a zombie hand. Seeing this, she started coming up with these wild imaginations. Then the zombies started rushing at them all at once. Alan walks forward, saying how this was exactly how he was thinking this fight would go because nothing beats numbers. All the zombies our boy summoned rushed at the huge bear, and this thing screamed from the pain. Suddenly, the monster swung hard with its paw and sent several zombies flying into the wall. More zombie arms started popping out of the ground. Alan was thinking how this bear had murdered tons of people, but it's a good thing for him, because that means he can summon more zombies, and it was working in his favor. Even though that damn thing was way tougher than his undead crew, the bear was no match for the zombies. The bear wiped out all the zombies he'd summoned and walked right up to our boy, who's just standing there. Charlotte stabbed the monster in the head, and it immediately started falling. She didn't waste a single second and started skinning it. She looked over, and our boy was having trouble standing. She helps him stand up, asking if he's okay. Our boy said he's fine, just burned through too much divine power. He's wondering what she's even doing here and why she followed him. He then turned to her and said how he'd shown her all his abilities, but he wants to live quietly, so could she please keep this a secret? In Charlotte's eyes, he looked all handsome and composed, but in reality, our boy was dying inside thinking he won't bug her anymore, so she should just leave him alone. She said with this serious look that he saved her life, so she'll do whatever he asks. Alan was about to say something when the idiots showed up yelling for them. Some guy asked, all worried, why they jumped down there, asking our boy if he's okay. They brought equipment to explore the cave and started climbing down. Mentally, our boy is cursing the situation. He doesn't want these idiots here because he very well knows that they're just going to get in the way. The first guy down was shocked, asking who the hell dealt with a zombie and bear like that. Then he turned to our boy, asking if he was the one who did it. Our boy told him he thinks in necromancers in the cave who might have wanted to turn this cave into his hideout and kill the bear. The guys didn't inquire further. They wanted nothing to do with the necromancer. Now he just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. He was sure Moraine might already be dead, and the necromancer was using her just to lure them in. As he was thinking that, the guy then asked him what they should do now. Our boy said they need to go deeper. The guy asked if he's absolutely sure about that. Alan agreed with this idiotic smile, saying he needs to see how good this necromancer is. They then headed further into the cave. After a while, they were deep inside and found Moraine. Seeing her, the guys immediately rushed over, yelling her name, saying they came to save her. Alan looked at her surprised, thinking how she already played her role in all this, so wouldn't it make sense to just dispose of her? Seeing her all fine, he was having a bad feeling. Our boy quickly walked up to her and straight up her in the face with his shovel. Seeing this, everyone was like, what the hell is this idiot doing? But our boy just turned and said he wanted to hit her with the edge. The guys rushed to Moraine, asking if she's okay. One of them turned to our boy, asking what the hell's going on. Alan said he could see everything. The system window popped up with all of Moraine's info. Now everything was making sense. Our boy figured out she wasn't the bait, but the mastermind. Moraine looked at him all worried, calling him Prince and saying he must have misunderstood. Alan said he's not listening to her BS. He then told the others they shouldn't be fooled because she's the Necromancer. These idiots obviously didn't believe him, but he continued his explanation, saying how she isn't what they think she is. Everything about her is a lie from her looks to her age. But nah, she isn't giving in that easily. She put on this scared act, saying a necromancer dragged her here and tortured her. Our boy then pulled out a bottle of holy water, handing it over to her. He told her to drink it, saying that she's innocent. This will act as the best healing potion there is, but if not, all of her organs will melt away. She then told our boy there's no need to hand her something so valuable, but our boy just walked up to her, of course with his idiotic smile, and told her to drink it already. When our boy brought the bottle right to her face with this scary smile, and it freaked her out. Moraine staring at him, wondering how the hell he figured it out. She in the perfect disguise, nobody suspected anything while she was playing Moraine in the village. How did our boy see through her? What kind of power does this guy have if he could deal with that bear? Alan's looking at her, asking if she's going to drink this or what. Our boy shoves it right into her hands and she's not budging. Morgana's face started changing, this dark aura came out of her, and she said she was planning to get rid of him during the death wave. She attacked fast and broke the bottle our boy was holding. Her disguise finally dropped and she summoned the dead, saying he just accelerated his own death. She was trying to prolong his life, but oh well. She's yelling with this wide smile that he's going to die here. As the skeleton popped out of the ground, our boy hit it with the shovel, being all mad about how that thing could growl at him and he was doing all mad. Morgana did notice Charlotte, who snuck up behind her asking what's going on. Charlotte pushed her to the ground with one hand and held a knife in the other. Alan patted the skeleton's head, saying it did a great job. Morgana's yelling, asking who the hell he is and what he did to her skeletons. She asked him if that shovel was the source of his power. Our boy walked towards her, laughed, and said they make good shovels nowadays. But she's not buying it, saying it's definitely not an ordinary shovel. It's probably a sacred relic. He looked at her, saying that's the last thing she should worry about. She better think about herself. After some time, she got smacked hard in the face. Her hands were tied and she was confessing everything about herself. It broke these idiots' hearts, but our boy already knew this. He then told her to tell him something else. She told our boy that she'll tell him everything about the person who asked her to kill him. Our boy was surprised as he asked, so it was someone's order? Moraine said she was ordered to lure him and make it look like suicide. This took our boy by surprise. He was standing there thinking so the original prince didn't commit suicide, but was killed instead. Does that mean the original prince wasn't as pathetic as everyone thought? Moraine's confused why he seems so chill about all this. She then told our boy that Dark Church ordered her to kill the 7th grandson of the Holy Emperor using the bear. She figured out he's also a necromancer, and if the church finds out, they won't let him slide. Our boy walked up, asking, so she saw everything, huh? He called Charlotte over, saying they'll have to kill her then. Charlotte immediately pressed the knife to her face. Morgana completely panicked, yelling for them to stop. She'll keep everything secret and spill everything about the Dark Church. Alan had this wide smile as he slapped her face, saying if she can talk this easily, then the info's not worth much. The villagers will decide her fate. The guy stared at her with pure hatred, and our boy pointed out how many people here lost family because of her. She begged for mercy and screamed as the guy started beating her down. Alan asked pretty casually what they're planning to do with her. One guy said she should suffer as much as she made others suffer. They started driving her off, and another explained they'll torture her to death and then dump her in the forest. Animals will eat her corpse, and whatever's left will turn undead. Isn't that the perfect death for some necromancer who disrespects the dead? Our boy agreed, thinking these villagers are actually pretty hardcore. After a while, he dropped some books on the table, thinking about how he couldn't find everything, but at least swiped a couple books. He then opened one, hoping maybe he could learn to talk with spirits, but seems like he won't find that skill here. Alan remembered Moraine mentioning this death wave thing, and about the murder plot. Are his brothers behind this? Since he's a prince, maybe they were trying to eliminate competition for the throne. Our boy closed the book, muttering about how confusing this power struggle mess is. Is this really what royal family life is like? What if someone actually manages to kill him next time? He needs to level up his skills ASAP. Charlotte's wondering if our boy will really get killed. Everyone keeps saying our boy has completely changed. He's not exactly big, but he's always first to charge into battle. Single-handedly saved so many lives and even held proper funerals for people. She remembered how villagers mentioned that while she was recovering, our boy had been personally handling her parents' bodies. Charlotte clenched her fists, thinking about how he saved both her and her parents. She wants to thank him, but words wouldn't be enough. She glanced at the books he brought back, realizing it's dangerous being around him, but right now he needs protection. She picked up this book called the Imperial Swordsmanship Manual, deciding if she's going to protect the prince, she needs to get way stronger to protect her glorious prince. Meanwhile, Alan's sitting there reading through this book, getting a whole crash course on undead biology. Turns out when zombie bodies start falling apart, they become skeletons. But if they somehow manage to keep their bodies from rotting, they level up into ghouls. From there, it's ghoul to Dullahan, then finally vampire. Basically, the longer they survive, the smarter and stronger these bastards get. The book explains that when zombies just chill in dark places, the mana there triggers their evolution. That's why these things are constantly hunting for strong mana sources. And get this, the place where all zombies get summoned is called the Land of Dead Spirits. When autumn ends and winter rolls in, their desire to reach the Land of Dead Spirits goes absolutely crazy. They call these times the Death Wave. And December 25th, that's the coldest day of the entire Death Wave period. While normal people are opening Christmas presents, all the undead are marching to the Land of Dead Spirits trying to get their lives back. Alan closes the book with this worried expression, thinking there's about a month left until the Death Wave hits. That's when Charlotte walks up, calling him my prince and offering to help put the book away. Alan hands it over while watching her leave, and he's thinking to himself that he didn't even ask her to do all this stuff. But this girl shows up at the church every single day. She's not just sorting books either, she's cleaning, taking care of the cemetery, and cooking food. Our boy's basically got a full-time assistant he never hired. He closes his eyes, thinking she'll probably leave sooner or later anyway. As far as he knows, Grill adopted her, so now she's got an actual home to go back to instead of hanging around some banished prince in a creepy church. Suddenly, the church door slams open and several knights walk inside. Alan's surprised as hell, asking what they're doing here. A system window pops up above one of them with all his info. This bastard's name is Harvin Dine. He takes off his helmet and explains they heard rumors about our boy capturing the witch, but Alan's not even focused on that. He's more annoyed by how this guy didn't even greet him properly, even though Alan's technically still a prince. Then it hits him, if they already heard the news, that means someone's been watching him this whole time. Our boy gets a bit annoyed and confirms, yeah, he captured her, then asks the knights standing around if they have a problem with that. The knight starts explaining he's only here to confirm some things. Apparently, the intel was right, the good-for-nothing, walking-talking waste of oxygen loser prince actually did something useful and helped the villagers fight off monsters. But what Harmon's really curious about is this detail in the report about them using farming tools as weapons. He asks Alan if that's actually true, because apparently some guy named Grill claimed he killed 30 zombies and cornered a witch using holy water. Alan's standing there thinking it hasn't even been 5 minutes since he praised that guy, and now he's exposing everything. Harmon smiles, saying honestly he thought it was an exaggeration, but when he saw the battle damage he realized it was legit. Alan's internally facepalming, thinking if this guy's supposed to be a holy knight, he really shouldn't be this trusting, just believing whatever people tell him like that. Harmon then asks if Alan knew Morgana belonged to the Dark Church. Our boy replies that yeah, he heard it from her. Harmon agrees, explaining it's this evil organization that's already managed to destroy 5 villages. Alan's shocked, realizing he's been an idiot for not knowing about any of this. Harmon asks if they really got rid of her for good. Alan's like, didn't you hear? She's dead. Body thrown away. Then Harmon asks if it was Alan's doing specifically. Now our boy has to play it smart. He calmly asks what kind of power someone would need to have to pull that off. In his head he's thinking of course he dealt with her, but revealing his powers would be stupid. The villagers helped him out, so it's better to stick with Grill's version of events. He pretends to be all shocked and scared, saying he almost pissed himself during the fight. All the knights look at him, with pure disgust written on their faces, and Harmon's thinking just the mental image alone makes him want to vomit. The guy coughs awkwardly and moves on, asking about the witch's magic books. They were supposed to confiscate all the dark magic stuff, but for some reason her entire bookshelf was empty. Alan said that maybe the villagers burned everything because of the sinister aura. He told Harmon that he could ask them about it if he wants. Harmon pulls out a small bag, saying Morgana had an 80-coin bounty on her head. Alan reaches out with this big smile, saying he was just doing his duty as a prince. Harmon reminds him he'll need to share with the other villagers. But mentally, Alan's throwing a party, thanking the witch because she just keeps giving him awesome stuff. First, the book's now gold. This dead witch is the gift that keeps on giving. Just as our boy was celebrating his newfound wealth, the knights told him to pack his stuff. Alan's face drops. He's shocked, turning to them and asking if he's being banished again. In his mind, he's like, bro, you already banished me once. What more do you want? Harmon sighs, explaining a death wave is starting and they're here to escort him to safety. Our boy's confused for a second as he asks if they're evacuating him. Will they send him back to the Imperial Palace? Or maybe the warm south where zombies can't reach? You know, somewhere logical. Harmon shakes his head. Nope, they're taking him to the Lonia estate. Now Alan's even more confused because that place is only half a day's ride away, which means they'll still be in zombie territory, so what's even the point? The knight explains that there's a fortress at the estate specifically built to stop the death wave. They've gathered soldiers and prisoners to fight off the zombies, which is basically admitting they're expecting a massacre, and they are talking about our boy there, so he can oversee the funeral rites for all the people who are about to die. Then we cut to the stronghold. As they get there, they meet Janet Lapin, 43 years old, feudal lord of Lonia, Viscount. The system window pops up, describing him as sociable and merciful. This guy asks our boy with this kind smile how he's feeling. Alan says he's not doing very well. Janet asks if the journey was difficult, and Alan agrees, complaining about how uncomfortable the carriage was. The Viscount notices the other people who got out with Alan and asks who they are. Grill introduces himself, saying he's someone good, real specific there, buddy. Charlotte stands next to him and says she's an assistant. Alan looks away, thinking that considering he's supposed to be in exile, he's actually being treated pretty well. He says they should stop wasting time talking and just take him to his room already. But while he's looking around, he's wondering why the hell he even came here. This place is called the Land of Dead Spirits of Lonia, also known as the Sacrificial Fortress. And it's called that because of all the sacrifices made to ease the wrath of the dead. The castle's only protection from the death wave is some walls they put up, and those are supposed to hold back zombies for about a month, just until spring hits after the death wave passes. Alan spots a bunch of prisoners walking in chains and asks if all of them are getting sent to the front lines. Harmon confirms it, then casually adds that they only need Alan to help with the wounded and hold funerals. Alan's like, okay, that seems doable. But then Harmon drops the bomb, saying how every year there are at least 2,000 or 3,000 dead here. Our boy's expression changes real quick. He asks if he'll at least have helpers, and Harmon replies that they've got about 80 priests who can perform purification rituals. The soldiers will help with funerals too, so he doesn't need to worry, while subtly adding that sometimes people die from overwork. But that's totally normal. You know, casual workplace hazards. Alan turns to the Viscount and says that he wants alcohol, adding that he doesn't want to die sober, and starts throwing a tantrum, so not wanting to deal with him, they immediately start bringing him bottles of alcohol. He then turns to Charlotte and Grill and tells them to go explore the place and have fun, but also reminds them to come back before the death wave starts because they still need to protect him. With that, our boy enters his room and closes the door behind him, standing with his back to the door, thinking he played that perfectly. Of course, he's not actually going to drink it. He touches the bottle and turns the alcohol into holy water. He looks at the bottle, thinking how he can't make it through all this mess without the holy water. Putting the 2 bottles in his inventory, he's already cooking up a plan to make as much as he can. Just as he was doing so, he noticed a gun hanging on the wall. He picks it up, thinking he'd read that guns exist in this world, but he didn't think they'd be so common. Apparently, almost nobody actually uses them though. People prefer melee weapons because the world's swarming with monsters and guns are basically just for fun. He thinks it's because the gun here needs mana instead of gunpowder. You could charge it by filling it with mana, but the mana consumption is insane. Even experienced mages can only shoot 5 times, and it takes 5 minutes to create a single bullet with mana. Alan starts charging the gun, saying that in movies zombies get killed with 1 shot. He needs to create a bullet, aim at a zombie, and shoot. Then he pulls the trigger. To his surprise, the bullet absolutely destroyed the wall in front of him, and his system window popped up, informing him that his divine aura had been activated. The shot was so powerful that everyone outside heard it. Harold is standing there wondering if his prince is into some freaking stuff. Some soldiers are looking at him, saying how he doesn't seem to be in a good mood. One thinks that he's probably worried about the approaching death wave, but the others suggest that it's all because of that 7th prince. Just then, Harmon turns around and says maybe they'd rather watch the prisoners instead of gossiping like a bunch of housewives. After they left, he was standing there thinking how they were right, that damn spoiled, good-for-nothing piece of trash, waste of oxygen of a prince is the reason for his headache. He had heard some loud noise from his room yesterday, and when he went to ask about it, Alan told him he shouldn't peek into a sensitive teenager's room. They were invading his space. As he walked away, he called Alan an idiot and thought he must have broken something. He remembers Parlock saying earlier that Alan changed a lot after the suicide attempt, like he lost his memory or something. He did everything necessary at the cemetery and even fought against a squad of zombies to save people. Harmon looks up with this thoughtful expression, thinking the villagers are talking nonsense. It's quite possible Alan's blackmailing them somehow, but the question still bugs him. How did that idiot manage to defeat a powerful necromancer like Morgana? It seems like that Grill guy is really the strong one here, he thinks to himself when everything settles down. Maybe he should write a letter of recommendation so Grill can take the Holy Night exam. Then he hears loud screams. He turns around wondering if the prisoners are rebelling again. He runs around the corner screaming what they're doing before the big battle, and he's shocked to see Alan holding a shovel to some guy's throat. Alan's looking at this dude with the most displeased expression, asking if he really doesn't know who Alan is. So the scene cut to the day after arriving at the Lonia mansion. People started dropping from the plague and overwork. Alan's out here digging graves, thinking of course they cared about bringing him here, they just wanted free labor. He's wearing his bird beak mask, and the system pops up saying it's got a cleansing spell to prevent infection. Alan wipes the sweat off his face, wondering if time's running out yet because the zombies aren't even getting close. And someone yells, catching his attention. One of the guys asks with this stupid smile if Alan wants to rest for a bit. The system announces this is Hayes Hedron, eldest son of the Earl. He says, judging by Alan's face, he must be a student from the academy. Alan walks up, asking if he mentioned the academy. Hayes asks, isn't he here because of disciplinary punishment? The other guys chime in, saying children from noble families can easily get exemptions. It's obvious Alan's just some village nobody. If he wants to live peacefully, he better listen because Hayes is the eldest son of Earl Hedron after all. Hayes smiles, saying he wouldn't have come all this way if it weren't for that maid girl, who they were just playing with, but she apparently created a whole scene. This bastard then points at Charlotte, saying she'll do. Alan says her name and Hayes asks, so she's his servant? He likes her because she looks pretty good. He says he'll take care of her. Alan starts to leave, thinking he'd rather dig graves than talk to these idiots. Hayes notices and asks if he's leaving already. He then calls for Charlotte. Charlotte looks confused and Hayes confirms, yeah, is talking to her. She should come here. He grabs her hand, saying it would be better if she had fun with him instead of her busy master. Charlotte refuses, saying she has no time for that. Hayes smiles, asking, didn't you understand what's going on? No one was going to have fun with a commoner like her. Before he can finish, he starts screaming in pain because Charlotte squeezed his hand way too hard. His friends are shocked, calling his name loudly. Alan's just watching calmly, thinking she could have broken his arm if she wanted. Hayes looks away and insults her, asking loudly if someone like her has nothing to show except strength. Alan sighs and tells her to stop. They're both surprised when Hayes yells that she showed what monstrous freaks her parents were. She must be a lot like them. Considering half the dead people in this country become zombies, her parents were destined for the same thing. That pisses Alan off. He walks up and swings his shovel, jamming it into the ground right next to Hayes. Dude nearly has a heart attack. He's reaching out trying to ask something when Alan says, oops, made a little mistake while digging this grave. Hayes tries to speak again, but Alan immediately smacks him in the face, saying his hand slipped. The blow sends Hayes to the ground. Hayes asks if Alan even knows who he is. Alan leans over, puts the shovel to his throat, and asks if Hayes knows who he is. That's when Harmon shows up, telling Alan to stop. He pushes Alan away, asking if he's going to cause trouble again. Hayes says Alan hit him, so he needs to be punished. Charlotte says worried that it wasn't like that. Alan raises his hand and casts silence. Harmon's shocked, thinking he can't say anything. Was this a spell using holy power? Alan looks at Harmon calmly and says he should tell this idiot who Alan is. Harmon announces that Alan's the 7th prince and grandson of the Holy Emperor. Alan looks at that idiot, asking if he now understands whose maid he was rude to and who he disrespected. He notices Hayes shaking and smiles, saying not to worry so much. If he sincerely apologizes, there won't be a problem. Cut to some time later, and Alan's locked in the dungeon. Charlotte's standing next to him, saying, according to the Holy Knight, injuring the son of a nobleman can't be forgiven. She asks for forgiveness because it's her fault he's here for a week. Alan says calmly that this all happened because of that rude freak. She shouldn't worry, he'll spend time here reading. He looks out the window, saying this is actually better since there's a blizzard outside anyway. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers runs to Harmon. He says they ordered prisoners to clear the snow, but the blizzard's so bad they can't keep up. Harmon ignores him. He was still thinking about the incident from before. He's wondering if our boy even knows what he did back then. He's certainly good for nothing, but the Holy Emperor's blood flows through his veins. The soldier calls again, and Harmon finally hears him. He agrees they need to keep clearing snow to maintain the fortress wall's height. He looks away, saying it's gotten freezing, but there aren't many zombies. The soldier asks if they should report this to the Holy Emperor's family. Harmon says that's for the best. They should gather the prisoners, they need time to regroup. After a while, prisoners enter the fortress and soldiers yell to close the gates. They notice wounded people and call for priests to help them quickly. One guy says zombies attacked from behind and they couldn't find them because of the snowstorm. He says everyone who was behind got eaten. Soldiers yell for everyone to gather and take position. They should climb the walls and prepare for battle. Harmon looks down from the wall, thinking this is why it seemed quiet here. The zombies were busy having an all-you-can-eat buffet out there. He's thinking how they are just days away from the death anniversary of Aemon, so it's kind of natural that the zombies are going crazy, but nobody could imagine the zombies would attack from behind. Were these bastards really suppressing their instincts by hiding under the snow drifts this whole time? Because the undead are literally dead people. They're not afraid of anything and only rely on instincts. They don't wear equipment and don't use strategies, so dealing with them should be easy, right? But Harmon's standing there watching this crowd of zombies walking toward the fortress, and he's thinking this is an impeccably prepared army. He's shocked because this has never happened before. Then he gets even more surprised when one of the monsters starts talking, loudly calling out to people, saying they should be afraid and wait for their death. Their fear is justified because he's the judge of this world, the Messiah who will save this world through death. He's a follower of the god of death, Judai. The system pops up saying this bastard is a vampire count, age unknown, can steal mana with a bite, and he's an arrogant necromancer on top of all that. Meanwhile, Alan's sitting in his cell thinking it's very noisy outside for some reason, and they're delaying his food. He's wondering what's going on then. He goes to the window, asking how they dare leave their prince hungry. That's when Janet shows up, calling for him. Alan turns to him, saying he wasn't trying to escape from prison, then yells that he should get out of here quickly. He walks to the bars, reminding Janet he's still under arrest, but Janet says that's not the most important thing right now since there's a whole squad of the dead outside. Alan asks, so they're short of workers, right? Janet says no, there really is a whole horde. The vampire brought an entire regiment of zombies with him. Alan asks if maybe they imagined it because what's a high-level monster like that doing here? Janet explains this monster spoke their language and controlled other monsters, so it's definitely a vampire. He opens the cell door, saying he doesn't know what exactly happened, but right now a holy knight is fighting them off. The fortress could fall, so they need to evacuate to a safer place, and he'll accompany Alan. Suddenly, rocks start falling from the ceiling, and Alan asks what that noise is. Janet says it's probably a squad of zombies, and they should quickly leave through the back door. But then a whole crowd of zombies crashes into the wall at high speed and they end up right in the cell. Alan's surprised, turning around and asking what the hell was that? Janet says loudly that the monster threw a ball of zombies at them. Alan grabs his shovel, thinking since they're already being attacked here, he's afraid to imagine what's outside. He closes the cell door and yells at Janet to quickly come to his senses and go command the soldiers because the more people they kill, the more zombies there'll be. Janet's about to run away, saying he'll go look for shelter for the residents while Alan's holding back the zombie crowd, wondering what he should do. Before this, he managed fine because the monsters weren't very high level, but now there are way too many of these bastards. He starts using magic, thinking, in a situation like this, he can only run. He releases holy water and the zombies start screaming loudly from the pain. When all the zombies fall to the ground without strength, Alan opens the cell door and heads out, thinking he should take advantage of this moment and quickly get outside. He goes through the hole in the wall and immediately hears loud screams from the inhabitants. He sees a crowd of zombies attacking people and soldiers, making them scream for help. Some wounded guy who got bitten is screaming there's nowhere to run. Soldiers with shields stand between the zombies and civilians, but then they turn around and realize there's also a crowd of zombies behind them. They get attacked and start screaming in pain. Alan hears all this, thinking he doesn't know how much longer he can hold out, and thanks to the holy water he's been making, he might have a shot. He raises his shovel over his head, saying everything's not going as planned, then jams it into the ground, saying he feels like the goddess Gaia is working overtime to send these problems his way. He starts using magic and the system pops up. Our boy creates a massive amount of holy water and it starts raining down on the battlefield like some kind of divine sprinkler system. The zombies are just chilling, doing zombie things when suddenly they look up at the sky and their skin starts melting. These undead bastards are screaming in pain. They're grabbing at their burning flesh. The villagers are standing there watching this go down, completely confused. One guy asks, "Yo, are the zombies melting in the rain?" Another dude points out that the wounds are actually healing and asks if that's holy water. Then it clicks to them that the drops of holy water are literally raining from the sky. Someone shouts that it must be the goddess's blessing, but then another villager goes, "Nah fam, that's not divine intervention, our boy did this." They all turn and see that the holy water is swirling around Alan. And speaking of our boy, Alan is standing there looking absolutely exhausted. Man used way too much mana for that sick magic trick and he's running on empty. The villagers are losing their minds, asking each other if this exiled prince can really use holy water. Someone points out that sure, he got kicked out of the palace, but he's still the grandson of the hero, the legend who stopped the king of the dead spirits, Aemon, 50 years ago. That bloodline's got to count for something, right? One of the soldiers steps up and yells to the crowd, asking if anyone needs help. Turns out the lord opened up his mansion's basement and is taking people in. The villagers don't need to be told twice, they bolt towards safety. Shouting that they're alive, they actually survived this nightmare, and thanking our boy while running. Alan's standing there with this tired as hell expression, muttering that he only made it rain inside the fortress and he's already completely drained. He calls over the soldiers and tells them they did a solid job, but now they have to come with him to help the holy knight. The soldiers look at each other awkwardly and apologize, saying they don't exactly have proper weapons for this zombie-slaying business. Alan just points at them and explains that you can't take down the undead with regular-ass weapons, so he's going to grant them a blessing. He admits this is his first time doing this buff thing, so he has no clue how long it'll last. Cut to a few moments after now, their weapons now have a holy buff. One soldier looks at his sword all confused and asks what the hell a buff even is. Alan's like, "Just trust me, bro, your weapons aren't completely useless anymore." Then he reminds them that they still owe him for saving their lives, so it's time to earn that debt. The fortress doors swing open and Alan tells them straight up. They're about to fight for their lives. Outside the walls, it's absolute chaos. Soldiers are already going toe-to-toe with zombies everywhere. One zombie spots the group coming out and immediately charges at them. A soldier swings his weapon and he one-shots the zombie. The dude's standing there in shock, staring at his blade that's now glowing with holy energy. He screams that he barely even touched the thing and it went down. Their weapons really do have holy power now. Seeing this, the soldiers get hyped. They rush toward the horde, yelling that these zombies are nothing. They're going to help their brothers right away. They start cutting through monsters left and right, thinking they might actually have a shot at winning this. After all, they've got the descendant of a legendary hero with them. What could go wrong? Suddenly, this nightmare fuel of a boss monster rides onto the battlefield on a horse that's literally on fire, wielding a weapon made of pure dark energy. The soldiers freeze in terror. This thing's aura is so intense, it releases magical energy that vaporizes several zombies in its path, and these are zombies on its own side. It doesn't care. It plows through several soldiers too, and one poor bastard survives but falls to the ground shaken from pure fear. He's staring at the weapon. Dullahan's pointing at him, thinking, "We can't beat this thing. We're so dead." That's when Alan casually walks up, points his gun at the monster, and says with this calm-ass voice, "Sorry about this. After all, it's only my second time doing this, so I didn't handle it very well." Meanwhile, somewhere else on the battlefield, a vampire is watching everything unfold. He can feel the energy of life out there, fresh meat that he hasn't feasted on in 50 years. My guy's been on a diet this whole time and he's about to break it hard. He's wondering how juicy these humans are, and if he turns them into zombies, will his regiment become even more powerful? This vampire is having a whole internal monologue about his come-up story. He's been waiting 50 years for this opportunity. Started from the bottom as a soulless zombie and climbed his way up to vampire status. He explains that vampires are ranked by the manner they possess, basically their power level, and since he became a vampire pretty recently, other vampires haven't recognized him yet. But he's confident because he's got something special, the skull of King Ammon. Thanks to this skull, he can collect mana in a couple of decades that would normally take him 100 plus years. Currently, he controls an army of 20,000 zombies and he's planning to level up from his current rank to Count, then eventually King. He's so strong now that ordinary holy water doesn't even scare him anymore. He looks at the knights below and thinks these pathetic losers should just surrender and become undead already. Back at the fortress walls, Harmon is standing there yelling orders. He's telling everyone they must keep shooting. They have to hold the line and not let the zombies break through. He knows that with sunset coming, the undead get stronger. They need to kill at least one more wave. If they lose this position, the village is done for. Harmon's thinking about how the zombies are already invading their territory. He can't abandon this command post because the main army is too close. His mind's racing. Will the village be okay? If not, what happens next? He's squeezing his sword so hard his knuckles are probably white, wishing the Holy Emperor was here to save their asses. Then he hears a loud noise behind him. He turns around and sees Charlotte dragging a whole arsenal of weapons. She says that the village is safe because our boys are handling business, so now she's going to protect the place where her prince is fighting. So Charlotte just throws this entire arsenal of weapons on the floor in front of Harmon like she's unloading groceries. She casually mentions that she heard he needed weapons carried up to the fortress walls. Harmon's standing there looking at her with his jaw practically on the floor. He thought she was just some servant girl, but even experienced warriors can't carry that many weapons at once. Where the hell did she get this kind of strength? He's trying to process this. He looks toward the battlefield, thinking they should be able to handle whatever's coming. Worst case scenario, he'll just break through enemy lines and personally cut off the vampire's head. Just then he notices a huge monster starts loading zombies into a catapult. These undead bastards are about to get yeeted at the castle. The soldiers look to the side, see this ball of zombies flying through the air toward them, and start screaming that a whole crowd of the dead is incoming. Harmon jumps in front of Charlotte and yells that it's dangerous. She needs to get behind him. He starts concentrating energy into his sword, calling for the god of war, asking for strength. But then Charlotte just runs in front of him. She pulls her sword out and swings with this absolutely brutal strike that splits the entire ball of zombies into two parts. Then this girl casually jumps down from this insane height like it's nothing. Harmon's standing there yelling, "How did you do that?" He's staring at the monster corpses with pure shock, thinking, did she just cut them in half? The zombies this girl killed can't even get back up. And here's the thing. The undead can only be permanently stopped by destroying the head or using holy water weapons. So what kind of sword does she have? Charlotte takes off running across the battlefield at superhuman speed, mercilessly slaughtering monsters left and right. Harmon's watching this whole display and analyzing her technique. Her tactics are sloppy. She's using raw muscle power to compensate for poor sword skills. But that destructive power, that brutal striking force, is definitely related to the imperial swordsmanship passed down through the Holy Cross unit. He shouts to get her attention and she immediately spins around. He asks loudly where she learned this technique, asking if she is a member of the Holy Imperial family. Charlotte just says super casually that she's the 7th prince's assistant and she learned this technique from a book. Man, chibi art of this series is really something else. Then she runs off before he can ask more questions. Harmon's left standing there like, I didn't hear anything. Meanwhile, inside the castle, a soldier drops a box of bottles on the floor and yells for the priests, telling them that when their holy water runs out, they should use these to heal the wounded. Janet asks where they got all these bottles from. The soldier explains that our boy gave them out. He brought holy water with him just in case things got messy. Janet sighs with relief, saying they're incredibly lucky. Then he asks, where is our boy right now? The soldier says that after returning from the battlefield, Alan took the remaining soldiers and said he'd help defend the walls. Janet's eyes go wide. He asks loudly if Alan went to battle, came back, and then left again. The soldier's like, yeah, I thought you already gave him permission. Janet looks away, muttering that everyone's been praising our boy and his holy power so much. It's not that they don't trust him. But seriously, will anyone actually stay inside the castle walls? Cut to the streets, where there are several zombies dressed as soldiers with their faces covered by cloth. Alan climbs the wall with these soldiers and gets noticed by an actual soldier standing guard. He puts on his mask and says they're reinforcements. The soldiers surprise anyone still alive, commenting that the situation at the main gate is pretty bad. Alan says he knows, that's why they sent some troops to the walls. But internally, he's thinking with this serious expression that there's way more trouble at the main gate than here, so nobody's going to look too closely at his crew. Then we get the reveal. He handed out all the holy water to others, so he doesn't have enough left for himself. He can't activate his new skill, Ghost Soldiers. He needs to raise old soldiers, but that's too difficult. So he just used corpses from the village. He's thinking that if they get caught, it's game over, so it's better to keep their faces hidden. A soldier walks up and asks if he came to help, saying it'd be better if he stayed in the rear where it's safer. Alan says he's got some business to handle. He pulls out a gun he brought and says he wants to use this. The soldier's confused, pointing out that guns are pretty useless in this situation. Alan aims the gun at the battlefield and says, actually, this is really the best view. He aims at the vampire boss and adds that from this position, the boss can be seen very clearly. He calls for the goddess's blessing, and with that, he pulls the trigger. Meanwhile, Harmon jumps down from the wall and yells. A knight spins around, calls him deputy, and reports that he heard the evacuation's finished. The knight explains that fortunately things haven't gotten worse. The soldiers suddenly got weapons loaded with holy powers, and some fighters showed up with skills rivaling the holy knights. Harmon's confused, asking what the hell happened while he was stuck up on the fortress walls. The knight says there's still one problem, though they don't know what to do about the vampire. Harmon casually smacks down a zombie that wandered too close and asks about ranged combat. The knights explain they tried arrows and stones, but all the projectiles got blocked by the vampire's magic shield. Even if they loaded a cannon with holy water, Harmon cuts him off, saying it still wouldn't penetrate the shield the vampire created. So basically, they'd have to break through this entire horde just to reach the vampire. He's thinking there's no way they can fight back. Then a soldier standing next to him spots something and asks what the hell that is. They should look over there. Ordinary priests aren't capable of this. Harmon looks at whoever caught the soldier's attention and his eyes go wide. Alan's standing there holding his gun, and this thing is emitting bright holy light. He calls out to Gaia, the goddess of love and mercy. He asks her to send her holy salvation and allow him to use the power that defeats the dead to break through the shield. Harmon's staring with this absolutely shocked expression, wondering who this guy is. The light particles are reflecting off Alan's face. This is obviously a blessing sent by the goddess Gaia herself. Even the most experienced priests rarely encountered this kind of power. Harmon didn't even know there were priests this powerful in Ronia. Charlotte walks up to him and casually drops the bomb. That's our boy. She looks up with a small smile and says she can see his light. This girl's out here fangirling over her boss. Harmon's brain is short-circuiting. He's thinking, our boy who opposed the goddess Gaia received her blessing? How is this supposed to make sense? If this really is the seventh prince, does that mean he accepts the love of the goddess now? Alan fires the gun and calmly says this vampire must be afraid of the goddess's powers. The shot flies across the entire battlefield, wounding monsters along the way. That divine energy collides with the vampire's shield and it breaks through. The shield shatters and the shot hits the vampire right between the legs. That bastard starts screaming in pain. That's what he gets for monologuing earlier. We get a flashback. Some time ago, Alan was reading through the Book of the Holy Emperor, learning about the method of gathering holy power. What's interesting is that while magicians use spells and mana, priests use prayers and holy water, and necromancers use life and magic power. In essence, to become a priest, he'd have to give up his life and magic power. But is it worth it? Doesn't he have enough holy water already? Just because he's the grandson of the Holy Emperor, if he could use these powers without sacrificing his life force, then maybe the priest role is worth trying out. Back to the present, the vampire is screaming his lungs out while the spot where he got hit is literally burning. He's yelling that he needs reinforcements now. Alan's thinking that because of the shield, he had to work pretty hard, but he did it. He's breathing heavily from the fatigue of firing that shot. The soldiers around them are shouting that the zombie squad is retreating. Alan thinks to himself that he's sorry the monster didn't die, but at least they bought some time to regroup and gather their things. He looks down and sees tons of soldiers staring up at him in awe. He raises his hand with a smile and asks if it's time to help the wounded now. Right after that, he and his zombie crew start leaving. One soldier says this is the first time he's seen the goddess's blessing, asking if our boy is some kind of experienced priest. If so, the wounded should be healed quickly. They're very lucky to have someone like this. Harmon's looking up with a slightly surprised expression, wondering if this is really the prince. A worthless guy who deserved to be exiled is capable of that. He turns around thinking about how a girl with Charlotte's insane skills could become an assistant to our boy. Then we get into Harmon's internal monologue about trust issues. He remembers he didn't trust the village elder, and now he's wondering, did Alan really become different after losing his memory? He wonders if Alan has finally gone back to how he was before Lady Eulicia's blessing, and oh boy, here comes the tragic backstory. Eulicia was the mother of the first and seventh princes, just an ordinary village girl, but she was from the Southern Asin. The Empire and the Southern Asin have been hostile toward each other for hundreds of years. Because of this, many members of high society straight up refused to accept her, but the son of the Holy Emperor fell in love with her with all his heart anyway. They got married and Luam was born. However, the Holy Imperial family had too much political influence, so two ladies of noble blood were assigned to the son of the Holy Emperor as additional wives. Several more children were born, and Eulicia gave birth to the seventh prince. When our boy was 10 years old, she died. She was attacked by a vampire during a night walk with her sons. The first prince, who barely survived that day, began suffering from a curse of the heart after the attack. After that incident, the kind-hearted seventh prince became completely emotionless. Harmon heard that Alan was so shocked by his mother's death that it changed him completely. So now Harmon's standing there scratching his head trying to figure out what the hell is going on. He's thinking, okay, this dude supposedly has amnesia, but judging by that insane divine power flex he just pulled, the memory loss clearly didn't affect his abilities, which makes absolutely zero sense by the way. Harmon's brain is working overtime now. He's like, wait a minute, why has this guy been hiding his god-tier powers this whole time? And then it hits him, maybe our boy didn't want the Imperial family breathing down his neck. I mean, can you blame him? Harmon starts connecting dots that probably aren't even there, thinking maybe our prince is plotting some epic revenge arc. Like, what if he planned his own exile just to get stronger away from all those nosy holy knights who report everything back to the palace? Our boy has had it rough his whole life. High society treated him like garbage, never missing a chance to throw shade about his mother. So yeah, maybe he is planning to come back and make everyone eat their words. Harmon's sitting there thinking, what if this whole time the prince has been planning all this, enduring all the insults and clupelty just to set up the ultimate comeback? He's thinking about the Holy Knights. They're basically the Imperial family's personal spy network, so of course our boy would act weird around them. Then he thinks about the day all of this went down. He was there in charge of their safety. When the vampires showed up, Loon even ordered him to go back and call the reinforcements, but he regrets that decision of his. Harmon's still beating himself up over that day he couldn't protect them. So Harmon makes up his mind. If our boy really wants revenge for his mother's death, then fine, he'll help. But first, they have to deal with this whole Lonia situation because you can't exactly plan a revenge arc when there's a more immediate problem trying to kill you. Fast forward a bit, and Harmon's walking around when he spots a soldier. He calls out, asking if the guy's on patrol, but gets zero response. Harmon's like, hello? Dude, I'm talking to you. He figures maybe the wind drowned out his voice, but then he notices something weird. This soldier is walking around in pitch black darkness without even a lantern. That's when his danger senses start tingling. He's thinking, okay, that's not normal. That's definitely not a person. Without wasting a second, Harmon draws his sword and charges at this suspicious soldier. Harmon gets a good look at the face and literally freezes. His brain just goes, wait, is that a zombie? Before he can even process this information, 3 arrows slam into the ground right near his feet. He whips his head to the side. There's a whole crew of zombies just chilling there. While he is fighting them, he senses that these zombies are not giving off demonic energy, but holy power. Harmon's standing there like, that doesn't make any sense. Pick a lane, you undead freaks. He breaks one zombie's sword and swings to attack, but before he can finish his strike, Alan shows up. And get this, Alan just casually yells, stop, and they just freeze mid-attack. Harmon's brain is officially broken at this point. He's staring at Alan like, bro, what is happening right now? Alan tells Harmon to lower his sword. So they start walking together and Alan asks if Harmon's done rearranging the troops because apparently they got incoming undead problems. But Harmon can barely focus on that. He's too busy trying to wrap his head around what he just witnessed. He's about to ask about it when Alan drops this random comment about how after midnight it'll be the anniversary of King Eamon's death, and he wonders if that'll make the zombie squad stronger. But Harmon finally asks the question that our boy was running from. He asked him if he was using necromancy. Our boy just shakes his head, saying that he doesn't know what it is. Internally, he is cursing his luck, saying how of all people, it has to be this bastard who caught him. And of course, Harmon isn't buying his lame excuse. He asks him if he was so desperate that he resorted to necromancy. Alan replies that he summoned some undead because they needed backup in a fight, but thanks to this whole memory loss situation, he has no idea where he learned this skill. It just happened. Harmon asks him if Alan made a deal with the devil, then why the hell do these zombies have holy power? Our boy told him that he is not hiding anything from him. Then he asked him if he was going to snitch about him to the Inquisition. Harmon told him that it's his duty to do so, and our boy is mentally cursing this whole situation even more. But then something completely unexpected happens. Harmon drops to his knees in front of Alan, and our boy is standing there confused as hell. Before he could say anything else, Harmon looks up and says that he is going to protect him at all costs. So now our boy is standing there looking at Harmon, but internally he's thinking, I could have sworn this guy hated my guts. Now he wants to help me? But when his 2 brain cells couldn't figure out what was going on, he directly asked if Harmon was just saying this to keep tabs on him. But Harmon looks down, all serious, and says that's not at all. He's about to launch into this whole backstory about his childhood trauma, but Alan cuts him off like, dude, save the therapy session for later. We've got zombies to deal with. He's thinking they can't waste this perfect opportunity. Meanwhile, our friendly neighborhood vampire is having his villain moment. He's shouting at all his undead minions, telling them it's time to feast on the living and reproduce. And he promises they'll all become kings too. This guy takes a deep breath, opens his mouth super wide, and just this massive stream of dark energy. The soldiers sees this and they're understandably freaking out. One guy's trying to be brave, yelling for everyone to hold their positions. Another soldier is basically having a panic attack, saying he doesn't think he can do this. The poor guy's face is still hurting from where our boy smacked him earlier, and he's thinking, how am I supposed to fight in this condition? Janet's standing there having a full-on crisis. He's looking at the soldiers in front of him, then at the massive horde of monsters shuffling toward them, and he's seriously reconsidering his life choices. He's thinking, maybe I should just retreat? But then the soldiers spot someone in a robe and they're like, oh thank God, it's a priest. We're saved. Alan starts casting all of his divine magic, which weakens the zombies and fills all the soldiers' weapons with holy energy. Janet's face lights up. He's so relieved, shouting that the priest is definitely with them and that goddess Gaia's got their backs. The soldiers get this huge morale boost and just charge forward, ready to throw hands with the monster army. Harmon's not about to be left out of the action. He jumps super high, swings his sword, and calls out to the god of war, Warheim, asking to borrow some power. He slams his sword into the ground and releases this massive energy wave that just wrecks all the zombies around him. He knows this is the perfect moment to pump up the troops, and he's not about to waste it, so he goes straight for the vampire. The vampire is watching all this go down, and he is not happy. He's got this super annoyed look on his face, complaining that this priest is completely blocking his strategy. Everywhere the divine power touches, his zombies can't regenerate. The vampire gets so mad he literally stands up from his throne and screams that he can't hold back his anger anymore. Harmon sees his chance and sprinting in toward the vampire, filling his sword with holy energy. He's about to land a hit when the vampire just casually jumps over him, like it's nothing. This undead bastard is fast. He lands on some poor zombie's skull, and the skull starts burning. Harmon yells for everyone to stop the vampire because this crazy bloodsucker is heading straight for the priest. Then things get even crazier. The vampire transforms into this huge monster because apparently his regular form wasn't scary enough. He grabs one of the soldiers like a toy and basically taunts everyone, asking if they seriously think they can stop him. Cut to Alan running through the city and his brain's working overtime. He's thinking, okay, I knew this guy would come after me. Just like I can see mana flows, this vampire can see my holy power. It's only a matter of time before he tracks me down. So Alan's got a plan. He's going to move to a better location and use the city's walls to keep this monster away from him. But suddenly, there's a huge chunk of wall flying right at him. Alan barely manages to dodge by throwing himself to the side, and this massive piece of architecture crashes where he was standing like half a second ago. The giant monster shows up, asking if Alan seriously thought some walls could stop him. Then he opens his ugly mouth and starts charging up another attack. Meanwhile, our boy is thinking, I knew that wouldn't work on you, bastard. That's why I planned for this ahead of time, so it's time for Plan C. And you know what Plan C is? Charlotte. He yells her name and she appears behind him holding this absolutely massive rock. She's got this serious expression on her face as she flies forward with her geological weapon, and the monster shoots out its energy beam at the same time, causing a big explosion. So Alan's standing there looking at Charlotte with that trademark stupid expression of his. She just used some rock magic to block the monster's attack. He's thinking to himself how her wall isn't going to hold against this thing's magic, and at this rate, they're both about to get melted. Then out of nowhere, Grill comes running up like a concerned dad and starts helping Charlotte hold the wall. He's all tense, saying even though he can't swing a sword, he can at least help his daughter out. Alan's watching these two struggling and he's like, bro, if you've got no power, how exactly are you planning to help here? But instead of roasting him, Alan decides to do something about it. He starts channeling his magic and Grill screams his name as he senses his holy powers entering him. Meanwhile, our boy is having this internal moment. He admits he can't properly contain his sacred power. But then he gets this idea. What if he could pump some divine energy into that wall they're holding up? So he starts praying to the goddess, asking for the power to protect these people. He's out here requesting protection to stop the dead, asking for love and forgiveness. His prayer works and he whips out this barrier of magical energy that's so powerful it catches the monster completely off guard. The thing was mid-attack and suddenly there's just this massive explosion of energy everywhere. When the dust settles, Charlotte's still alive and immediately starts panicking, calling out for our boy. She spots Gretel lying on the ground and loses it, screaming his name. She's about to sprint over there when Alan grabs her shoulder like, yo, chill. He's okay, just knocked out. Our boy is completely exhausted from using all that magic, telling Charlotte to calm down. She turns to him all worried and asks if he's okay. Alan's like, I feel like death mourned over, but yeah, totally fine. Meanwhile, the monster's rolling around on the ground screaming because Alan's magical energy is basically cooking him from the inside out. Alan sees this and goes, okay, this is our moment. Charlotte immediately hits him with reality saying, dude, you could barely stand, you can't fight like this. And for once, Alan agrees. He admits he's tapped out and completely out of holy water, so charging in would be stupid. So he decided to grab Grill and get the hell out of there. As he is heading to the underground, he's thinking about how his holy power drained way faster than expected. He's about to say something when this skull radiating dark energy catches his eye. He stops dead in his tracks, realizing something weird. The mana isn't gathering around the vampire. It's somewhere else entirely. Charlotte notices he stopped and calls out to him. Alan walks over to the skull and tells her to wait up. Then he picks it up and the system window pops up. Turns out this creepy thing is the skull of the Necromancer, King Aemon, and boy does it come with some sweet buffs. Magic power boost between 20 to 200% depending on your stats, a 10% recovery rate increase, and all magic skills get a 10% boost. Alan's reading this like he just found legendary loot in a dungeon. But here's where things get spicy. The weakened vampire finally gets back up, muttering about needing to recover ASAP. Then he looks down and his eyes go wide where his mice skew. This dude is panicking. He spots Alan holding it and charges at him screaming, "Shave it back." Alan just stands there all calm, looking at the item stats in his menu and thinks to himself, "Ah, so that's what this thing needs to work." Without hesitating, he slaps that skull right on his head. The system immediately announces that the activation is unstable due to lack of sacred power. It's like temporary equipment, but Alan doesn't care. Energy chains start forming around him and he declares he's a legion, the emperor of the Gaia inheritance. The system confirms his activation words and suddenly 2 knights materialize behind the vampire and just grab this guy. They slap some magical handcuffs on him. And one of the skeletons starts monologuing about how they can smell death on him. Says this vampire is a heretic who broke the rules of the world, and that's exactly why they were created. The skeleton's all mysterious, saying the vampire will understand once he hears the order. The system helpfully pops up to explain these are sacred knights. The vampire is absolutely losing his mind at this point. What is happening? Then he starts ranting about how they were the ones that had gone against the rule of the world. He starts screaming about how these guys were undead that had been brought back with the holy powers. Has anyone heard something more ridiculous than that? And how they're betraying Nudie, the god of death. Alan just points his gun at the vampire's head, super casual, and admits, "Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed too." Then he tells the vampire he should check out this beautiful weapon on behalf of the priest and holy power, and immediately blows the vampire's head off. So after wishing that bastard a Merry Christmas, our boy is standing there looking at the vampire's blown-off head with his holy knights chilling behind him. But using all that power to make the shot completely drained him, and our boy just collapsed to the ground. The knights he summoned start fading away, and with them gone, all the monsters that were fighting the soldiers just disappear. Everyone who survived this absolute nightmare of a battle is celebrating. Harmon heads into the city and finds Charlotte holding wounded Grill. Then this old dude comes galloping up to the fortress on his horse asking if he's too late. Someone tells him, yeah, pretty much. The old man explains he heard there were signs of weird activity in the land of the dead and thought the Necromancer king was back from the dead. But nope, turns out it was just some vampire doing party tricks. Though he's confused about how a normal vampire managed to collect 20,000 dead bodies. He mentions that Ronia's population is mostly prisoners and locals, and judging by how this vampire got his ass handed to him, maybe vampires aren't as strong as everyone thinks. But then something bothers him. He's been feeling this strange atmosphere ever since they arrived. There are traces of a massive struggle between sacred and magical powers, which means that a big battle went down here. If the vampire had all that magic, what kind of person could possibly stop him? One knight suggests maybe a saint appeared. The old man says that would be ideal because apparently vampires are starting to mix and blend with humans over time, and having a priest or priestess around would make dealing with them way easier. Another knight chimes in, dropping some lore. Apparently God divided himself into parts for fun to awaken sacred power in humans, which is why people with that power are super rare and hard to find. The old man's like, yeah, I know all that. I'm just saying we don't have anyone in the castle who can handle this mess. He starts giving orders they need to send priests, healers, and alchemists. He ordered the soldiers to take care of the regular people first, then deal with the prisoners. As the old man was about to leave, one knight told him that the 7th prince is there too, wondering if the old man would like to meet him. Man, the old man didn't like that at all. He starts emitting this super ominous aura that scares the absolute crap out of the knights. He asks the knight, "Did you just suggest I meet the 7th prince?" The knights are probably regretting being born at this point. The old man rides past them and coldly says they should head back. He has zero interest in meeting a child who dishonored his mother. He calls Alan a cursed grandson. Just then his system window pops up with all of this grumpy old dude info. He is Kelt Alols, 105 years old, and he's the freaking holy emperor. He says that he's willing to bet Alan is probably cowering in some corner of his estate right now. Cut to later. Harmon is kneeling before the emperor and told the emperor how our boy defeated the vampire. Kelt practically jumps out of his throne in shock. What did you say? The people around are saying every joke has its limits, and this is the most delusional thing they've heard in years. Like they literally cannot process this information. Old man asks with the most stunned expression, are we talking about the same Alan? Harmon looks at him and agrees that yeah, it sounds insane, but it's true. Then Kelt gets so angry he breaks his theatrone and accuses Harmon of being disloyal. He's shouting, asking if he is talking about the same bastard grandson of his. Then Archbishop Raphael Soria, another 100-year-old dude, steps in saying the Holy Emperor got a little excited. But he too has the same doubt. He asks if they really are talking about that shameless, no good, selfish, weak, spineless, immature, good-for-nothing waste of oxygen idiot prince that all of them know. Like, how could anyone believe he pulled off something like killing a vampire? Harmon's sitting there thinking, yeah, as expected, being on the 7th prince's side is rough. He admits he wouldn't believe it either if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. He tells them he's only reporting what he witnessed firsthand. But Raphael brings up an interesting point. Apparently, there are reports that the people of Ronia are praising the 7th prince. Some even called him the saint. He suggests they should investigate because it might be related to that strange energy he felt before. He's just worried Alan might be stealing someone else's glory. Kelt asks Raphael point-blank if he believes it could actually be Alan's power. Raphael quickly says nah, he's just trying to make sure Alan isn't taking credit for someone else's work. Old Man calms down a bit and addresses Harmon. He says he doesn't know if what Harmon said is true or false, but everyone who protected Ronia deserves recognition. So he rewards Harmon with the title of Count Jane and Holy Knight Harmon, plus gives him a small territory in the northwestern region. And he's shortening Alan's exile period. Once Alan fully recovers, he'll be ordered back to the castle. Then we cut to a while after and our boy Harmon arrives at a door in the castle and announces he's back from his mission. Someone behind the door tells him to come in. He enters, grabs a candle, walks to the bed, and asks if the person is feeling better yet. And here we meet Lan Owls, 27 years old, the first prince. This dude immediately hits Harmon with the most savage line. That's a funny joke for someone whose accidental death would mean nothing. He then mentions his eyesight and hearing are deteriorating, and he doesn't have much time left for these conversations, so Harmon should stop acting and come closer. Lan says he heard about what happened on the battlefield. Then suddenly he grabs Harmon by the clothes, getting all aggressive. He's furious that Harmon protected our boy. He asks him how he could side with that trash that defiled the honor of their mother. He grabs Harmon again and demands to know if he's even in his right mind. Luan's giving Harmon this death stare, asking if he's planning to bail because the dude looks like a walking corpse. He's thinking Harmon made the worst decision ever siding with that good-for-nothing prince, because there is no way that he can become the next emperor. But before he can finish that thought, Harmon calls his name, saying Alan overexerted himself, and he's bleeding again. Luan's just standing there shocked. He forces a smile, apologizes, and says he knew Harmon wasn't that kind of person. He pulls his hand away. Harmon tells him there's no need to apologize, neither he nor the seventh prince is to blame for anything. He's the one responsible for the death of their mother. No matter what orders he received, he should have stood his ground. Luan told him not to feel bad because if not for him, everyone would die then. He knows they only survived because the reinforcement arrived in time. Harmon asks Luan if he hates the seventh prince. Luan's like, are you asking the obvious? This guy disgraced them and is now recklessly wasting the life their mother gave him. Harmon asks him, what if the seventh prince intentionally made himself look like an ugly mess? What if he hid his true motives to make sure he could avenge Lady Elisha? What if he acted inappropriately on purpose to gain strength, deliberately getting himself exiled? Luan just stares at him with the most "are you okay?" look and asks if Harmon got hit in the head harder than he thought. Harmon says he needs to carry out the Holy Emperor's order, so he's leaving for Romia soon. Luan looks away annoyed and says that if it's the Emperor's order, then yeah, it's time for that bastard to finally go home. The scene shifts to 3 weeks after the waves of the dead hit the Ronia estate. We cut to Grill stabbing a shovel into the ground, asking himself how long he has to keep doing this. After 3 weeks of hard labor cleaning this place up, it can finally be called a village again, as he was complaining about how no one is helping him. He spots a box and wonders if these are belongings of the dead. If they died centuries ago, they don't belong to anyone anymore, right? He starts rummaging through the stuff, justifying it as payment for all his hard work. Then his attention gets caught by a piece of paper. It hasn't aged at all. He wonders if it's expensive or something rare. And we cut to our boy's room and Charlotte is asking this glutton if he needs more food. Our boy shakes his head, saying he hasn't eaten this much in forever. She reminds him he just woke up after 3 weeks and the doctor said he needs to eat as much as possible. The fact that he woke up at all is already a miracle. The doctor asks our boy how much sacred power he used up. The amount could have been enough to turn a person into a corpse, but he recovered thanks to both the sacred power and medicine, though his body's still exhausted, so he'll have to stay in bandages for a while. Alan asks if he's going to become a corpse. Charlotte starts untying the bandages while the doctor asks why he says such creepy things. These are his special treatment methods. While Alan was unconscious, he also checked Charlotte. Alan asks if there's a problem. The doctor explains that normally people can get cut up, have limbs severed, or even be killed, but an ordinary body doesn't develop like this girl's. It's like seeing the Holy Emperor from 50 years ago. When His Majesty was in a coma after being defeated by Aemon, his body took enormous damage from sacred power and mana. He had to be put back together piece by piece. At that time, his body developed beyond any human limits, and that was one of the main reasons why the Holy Emperor was able to defeat Aemon. He wonders if Charlotte has the same strength. Alan looks at Charlotte and a system window pops up showing all of her info. Hard worker, high concentration, superhuman body. And below everything was the line that she'll do anything to help him. As he was reading her info, she noticed him staring and asked what's wrong. Alan thinks people like this should be heroes, not weak people like him. He says he's bored and wants to read and asks her if she can bring him a book. When she leaves, our stars are thinking about how it's good he got Aemon's skull, but the backlash is brutal. His body can't handle it. As he was thinking about that, Charlotte brings books. A book about the theory of magic from the Sacred Emperor, Sacred Power, and Dawn, and the doctrine of resurrection. Alan starts reading, glad everything's written in such detail. He notices the dedication to the great goddess Gaia and thinks this guy's faith is crazy strong, though he overlooks it and starts reading because he needs to understand the basics as soon as possible if he wants to control his powers. Just then he hears a knock on the door and Harmon walks in. He asks our boy the usual how he is feeling and how he is glad to see him doing good. Our boys ask him that he had heard that he has gone to the capital, so how come he is here this early? But then his mind goes to another tangent real quick. He remembers the last time Harmon met him, he had given him a hefty reward, so he is expecting something like that, maybe lots of gold or a vacation. He turns to Harmon's eyes, all shining, but then Harmon drops the news that the Holy Emperor has ordered him to come back to the castle. So our boy Alan straight up kicks Harmon out of the room, slams the door in his face, and just pretends that conversation never happened. But Harmon's not giving up. He's standing outside the door telling Alan he needs to go back to the castle. Some time passes and Charlotte tells our boy that he is still outside waiting for him. Alan told her to just ignore him. Man's really committing to this whole pretending Harmon doesn't exist thing. Harmon keeps standing at the door calling our boy. Charlotte asks if Alan doesn't want to go back to the castle. Alan's like, of course I don't want to. Why would I want to go back to such a dangerous place? He's thinking to himself that he still doesn't know who is behind Morgana's whole situation, and maybe he should have asked her some questions before, killing her. Charlotte's standing there looking a bit sad. Alan notices and tells her not to worry, saying that he'll take care of it himself, so she can just ignore Harmon. But even after that, Harmon still keeps asking. Finally, Charlotte comes out of the room with a message from Alan. Harmon gets all hopeful, asking what the prince said and if he's finally decided to return to the castle. Charlotte delivers what is possibly the most savage rejection ever. Alan said Harmon must get lost until he sprinkles salt on him. Harmon then asks if Charlotte's heading home. She says, yeah, she'll be staying in a hut with her father outside the castle. Harmon offers to see her off since it's already night, but Charlotte politely declines. Then Harmon gets real and asks if maybe she knows why Alan keeps refusing to return to the castle. Charlotte tells him what Alan said, that the castle is a rather dangerous place. Harmon thinks about it and admits Alan's position there really isn't the best. Charlotte's thinking to herself with this annoyed expression that, as she suspected, even Alan's relatives don't treat him well. Some of them literally want him dead. She wishes she were stronger so she could protect him better. They arrive at the village and Grill waves at Charlotte, saying she came pretty late today. Then he notices Harmon and goes, wait, is that Mr. Knight? Harmon asks if Grill fought in the earlier battle too. Grill gets all modest and embarrassed, saying of course he did, people should help each other out. As he's about to head into the house, Harmon compliments him, saying that's very commendable. Then he asks if Grill could tell him what he did in the battle. Charlotte goes inside the house while Grill casually mentions he only killed 50 large zombies, although he managed to take the fangs from the vampire count as a souvenir. Charlotte notices something in the house and asks what it is. She's looking at this piece of paper, mentioning there's a document on the dining table she's never seen before. Grill says it's basically his talisman that he hasn't taken out in a long time. It looks old because he hasn't touched it in ages. Harmon looks at it and his brain just explodes with realization. This is a family document with the seal of the Harris family that protected the northern region of Ronia 50 years ago. The same family that got completely wiped out in an immortal battle with the Necromancer King Aemon. These people were the most loyal to the Emperor, the bravest family in the land. So what's their document doing here? Then it all clicks for Harmon. These two are survivors of the Harris family. Now he understands where they get their strength from. Even though they're living in the shadows because their family fell, they still care about Alan. He's now thinking how nobody even knows about their loyalty to the Emperor, but they're out here protecting the prince anyway. Harmon says he respects their wish to keep their mission secret from everyone. Then he says that he can write a letter of recommendation for her and even help her improve her skills. Hearing this, both Charlotte and Grill are absolutely shocked. Grill asks loudly if Charlotte would really be able to go to the castle. Harmon nods, saying that if she wishes, she can even obtain a title with her strength. It wouldn't be that difficult, and they teach her the art of the Holy Empire's sword so she could help His Highness even better. Charlotte immediately gets serious and approaches Harmon, saying she agrees. But if becoming a holy knight means she has to be away from His Highness, then she's out. Her loyalty is to Alan first, title second. Harmon assures her that if her mission is to protect Alan, he'll work even harder to protect him alongside her. He's thinking to himself that he'll do whatever it takes to escort the Harris family and Alan back to the castle. Then we cut to the church, and before Harmon could start begging our boy to tag along, our boy looks at him and says that he agrees so they can go to the castle. Harmon looks absolutely shocked. Like, did you hear that right? Alan's actually ready to go to the castle? They're riding in a carriage along the road, and Harmon asks why Alan suddenly changed his mind. Alan's sitting there with this annoyed expression, asking what he means. Harmon points out that literally yesterday, Alan was slamming doors in his face because he didn't want to go. So what changed? Turns out Alan's been reading some book and he's completely fascinated by it, but the village didn't have the next volume and he won't be able to find the next book anywhere except the royal library. Alan explains that since he only got rude looks in the castle anyway, he'd just lock himself in the library. They get to the capital. Our boy pulls his head out of the window looking at the crowd outside. Harmon asks him what he feels about this, and our boy replies that this place smells bad. He then puts a handkerchief on his nose and asks Harmon if those undead bastards have started living in the capital. So Alan just takes off sprinting down the street like a maniac and accidentally shoves this poor woman who's selling fruit. Harmon's running after him, apologizing to her, and explaining they're in a hurry. There are people everywhere talking on the street, and our boy just keeps on running. He's thinking to himself that, yeah, the street looks busy and normal, but he's sure he smells a vampire. If he follows the stench, he'll definitely find it. Harmon catches up to him, asking if he smelled something. Then Alan spots something that makes his blood run cold, a girl's head just lying on a box surrounded by flowers. She's got tears in her eyes and her skin color is all messed up. Then her eyes snap open, revealing they're blood red, and she opens her mouth wide and starts screaming. Alan doesn't hesitate. He runs up and smacks her head with his weapon infused with holy energy. Charlotte asks if that was undead. Harmon says he's heard of similar cases, but this is somehow he doesn't get to finish because Alan's already noticed the body hanging on ropes nearby. He's wondering if the head belonged to that body. Looks like all the organs were removed and only the skin is left. Suddenly, Alan whips around and an unknown person says it was a red-haired middle-aged man who just ran away. Harmon figures there's a high probability that's the culprit. Alan agrees but says it's hard to track him down now because the stench has spread everywhere. Harmon says he'll report it once they get to the castle. Alan sighs and thinks to himself he only came here to study magic. But for some reason, he's got a bad feeling about this. Lawrence is in chaos. Similar murder cases have been happening recently, and now with the scandalous prince visiting, the place has been thrown into chaos for multiple reasons. Meanwhile, our boy has entered the castle in complete safety, which probably won't last long. Harmon's giving Alan this slightly annoyed look, begging him to just stand still. He told him that he's already reported the matter, so Alan should just chill. Plus, there's a banquet tomorrow, so Alan shouldn't do anything today. Our boy says that he already figured it out. How many times is Harmon going to tell him this? Harmon calmly replies that Alan's still a child. Then Harmon turns to Charlotte, telling her that he is going on a patrol and telling her to go look around the castle. If anyone asks who she is, she can just mention his name since he's the vice captain of the holy troops. Alan says he's going to lock himself in the library then. Harmon gives him directions. Just go down the hall and turn right at the courtyard. Charlotte says she'll join him after she's done exploring. Alan mutters with annoyance that he really does feel like a child. As he's walking down the hall, he's thinking to himself that he thought he was mistaken, but he can still smell that stench. A vampire must have gotten into the castle. Since the smell is pretty ominous, it'd be better for him to stay quiet like he was told. Maybe he should just grab the book and run away? Wouldn't that be easier than getting dragged into all this drama? Alan's walking along the corridor, saying how it feels like he's walking in circles. Then his attention gets caught by a statue in the courtyard. He wondered whose statue it was, and as he got closer, he realized that it was his mother's. Then he hears someone absolutely going off with the cursing. He peeks around and sees this old dude sitting there, ranting about how these useless idiots make him do everything himself. Then casually drops that maybe he should cut off their heads and use them as decorations. Alan's thinking, okay, this guy's definitely a murderer, and is about to bounce when the old man whips around. Starts yelling about how Alan should come straight to him the moment he arrived at the palace, then orders him to grab the bags and shovel. Alan's just standing there like, is this old man insane or what? But one look at the guy's face and he decides not to test it. So he goes to grab the stuff. While he's picking up this stupidly heavy bag of dirt, he's thinking he should have changed into those new clothes Harmon gave him. This old dude clearly thinks he's some new servant because of his outfit. He sets everything down and tries to politely excuse himself, mentioning there's been a misunderstanding. Then he notices the old man's hands are covered in dirt, so being the nice guy he is, Alan offers him his handkerchief. He even gives him some friendly advice about maybe not working alone and asking for help next time. The old man snatches Alan's hand, he gets this scary look on his face and says, so all those reports were true, his useless grandson really did lose his memory. That's why he doesn't even recognize his own grandfather. Cut to later, and our boy's standing in front of these massive doors looking stressed as hell. Behind the door, the guard announces that our boy is entering. He walks into the royal hall and the old man is sitting on the throne looking all intimidating. Alan's standing there remembering their earlier encounter, thinking, I can't believe that guy was the Holy Emperor. Kelt starts off saying he heard Alan took an active part in protecting the Ronia estate. Also heard he killed the vampire count, and then he straight up asks our boy if that is true. Our boy pauses before answering. He's thinking about how even the people of Lawrence heard about the murder incident, so there's no way the Holy Emperor doesn't know a vampire was behind it. So instead of getting credit for Ronia, he says that although it's true that he killed the vampire, he couldn't have done it without the help of Harmon, Charlotte, Lord Jennett, and all the people of Ronia Manor. Everyone contributed. It wasn't just his strength. He's thinking he'll just spread the credit around to avoid any problematic outcomes. The old man is sitting on the throne. He is somewhat taken aback by his explanation, but he says he understands. But our boy picks up on his hesitation as he is thinking about how he still looks annoyed. Before he could think anything else, the old man tells our boy to go back and rest since he just got to the capital. Alan agrees and says he hopes they can finish hunting the vampire without problems, then bounces. After he leaves, Kelt's sitting there thinking, did Alan learn about the vampire situation from Harmon? Just then he remembers how, just half a year ago, how useless this kid was, but now he accepts help with dignity. He even noticed vampires in the capital. He wonders, if someone loses their memory, does their entire character change? Maybe he's thinking that if he knew this earlier, he would have slammed his head on the wall himself. As he was getting caught up with his fantasies, he remembers the two names our boy said, Grill and Charlotte. Based on what Harmon said, they're survivors of the Harris family. If that's true, then them making quick work of the vampire isn't that big of a deal. But the thing that still bugs him is that the Harris family wasn't known for using divine powers. These guys were purely swordsmen, so something's not adding up. He's remembering the report from Lord Janet about how our boy saved soldiers on death's door with divine power. And that wasn't the craziest part of the report. The report even said that our boy used the goddess's blessing through his prayers and how he killed a vampire with a decorative gun. At first, Kelt thought it was complete nonsense. Kelt asked the people next to him what they think. These dudes immediately say it's obviously a lie. Our boy wasn't on the battlefield long, and sure, the masked guy had the same build. They probably just made a mistake. But then one of them adds, if this divine power comes from the Emperor's bloodline, how else can it be explained? Kelt's sitting there with this annoyed expression, thinking he'll have to give up the throne soon. But he doesn't have an heir. He doesn't even have someone who can help him. If nothing had happened to Yulisha that day, he would have chosen Luan as his heir. And it was because of that incident that Luan became so cold and distant. While he's having this internal crisis, the men are loudly saying that everyone knows our boy is a good-for-nothing. He couldn't have done such things. And their bickering just got louder and louder to the point that the old man had to step in, and man, this guy has a serious temper. He says loudly that if they don't want to get punched in the face, they should shut up right now. That's when Count Palmer walks in. This bastard is the right-hand man of Luan. He suggests that since they have plenty of time, why not investigate this matter better? Lady Yulisha's death anniversary is in 2 months. It would be great if Alan stayed in the castle until then. Since he's going to help catch the vampire anyway, why not let him rest until the upcoming banquet? The old man likes the idea, so he says that there's going to be a banquet soon, so there's no point rushing. They'll do as Palmer suggests. Then we cut to our boy. He's walking down the corridor, thinking to himself how this place is a total maze and how he's been walking in circles for hours. Finally, he gets inside the library and gets taken aback to see someone there. The person apologizes and says she'll leave right away. Our boy tells her that he could stay if she likes, but the girl is clearly terrified just by looking at him. So now our boy was standing there thinking if he has somehow gotten uglier, then he starts panicking, remembering something from long ago. Thinking just then, his system pops up with all of this girl's info. She's Alice Astoria, 17 years old, granddaughter of the Archbishop and Man. The girl has some serious powers and skills like love and forgiveness, incredible divine power and knowledge of magic. Alan reads this and thinks, oh, no wonder she's so uncomfortable because this idiot remembers that he used to torment her. Alan's standing there in peak awkwardness, then notices the girl's last name, and he realizes she's got the same surname as the author of the book he was looking for, which means the book was written by none other than the Archbishop himself. Alan's expression changes real quick. He's thinking, oh, I'm screwed, because after the stunt he pulled before getting kicked out, there's absolutely no way the Archbishop's going to let him anywhere near that book. Alan quickly apologizes, saying he might scare her. He explains that he lost his memory, so he doesn't remember most people in the castle. Meanwhile, he's looking at this terrified Alice thinking, yeah, that's fair. I wouldn't believe this garbage excuse either if I were her. Our boy decides the best course of action is to just grab the book and get the hell out of there. So he reaches up to where it should be on the shelf and then just stands there frozen because the book isn't there. Alice asks if he was looking for her grandfather's book, and Alan turns to her and nods. She's clutching the book in her hand, saying she's already read it, but she can give it to him. Alan, trying to be all polite now, says he doesn't want to distract her while she's reading. But Alice hands it over anyway, and when Alan sees the title, his eyes go wide. The book is about resurrection. Alice explains these are just notes from her grandfather's research, adding that there's nothing special about them. After all, people can be resurrected. Alan looks away in surprise, asking why resurrection can't be done. Alice explains that no matter how strong sacred powers are at giving life, it's impossible to catch a soul that's already left the body. Only necromancy can do that, and necromancy requires a huge sacrifice. Alan asks what would happen if someone had both sacred powers and magical powers. Alice explains those cases are incredibly rare. If you use both powers at the same time, your body could just explode. Alan's flipping through the book, asking if that's really true. He looks at it closely, saying he still doesn't think it's impossible after all. This is a book about resurrection, right? Alice looks at him, asking what he means. Alan says the book mentions that if you want to use sacred power better, you need to pray more. Sorcerers use mana and spells, and dark sorcerers use magical powers and life force. So isn't there a way for someone to use sacred power better? Alice says if he's asking about a better method than prayer, magical tools could be used. She starts to mention something about resurrection being possible when Alan suddenly cuts her off. He gets all flustered, saying loudly that he's delayed her with his conversations. It's late. She should go home. She seemed uncomfortable with him from the start, and there's no point denying it now. Then this bastard starts physically pushing her towards the gate. She clearly wants to say something, but our boy just keeps shoving her toward the exit, tells her not to worry about the library because he'll turn off the lights when he leaves, and then slams the door right in her face. So now Alice is standing outside like, what the hell just happened? Wondering what's gotten into that idiot all of a sudden. What was all that about resurrection? She thinks he might just be bluffing like he always does, but something about his aura was different. The guy seemed genuinely serious this time. Before she can think about it any further, a wild archbishop appears, asking her how she's doing and telling her to be cautious because that damned seventh prince has returned. He then hands her a bird mask and tells her it's time to get to work. With that, both of them, along with a bunch of priests, head straight to Lewin's chamber. When they get there, this dude is screaming his lungs out. Alice puts on her mask and everyone starts the healing procedure. As they work, Lewin starts screaming even more intensely while she's healing him. Alice is thinking how her grandfather is right about one thing. This dude's curse is on another level. It's something that can't be cured even with her divine power, and knowing how his condition keeps getting worse, she knows he doesn't have much time left. That's why she desperately wants there to be a cure. As she's thinking this, what Alan said earlier suddenly pops back into her mind. The scene shifts to our boy Alan sitting in his room looking at sheets of paper and asking Harmon if there's any information about his mom and dad here. Harmon's standing there asking if Alan really needs this information too, since he should still remember his own parents. Alan's sitting on the sofa asking if Harmon still thinks he faked his amnesia after everything. He really did lose his memory, so Harmon should just tell him about them already. Harmon sighs and says that when his parents were alive, they lived a good and ordinary life. Alan looks up in surprise and goes, "That's it? That's literally all you're giving me?" Harmon just nods. Our boy looks at him thinking, bro, your face is screaming that you're lying right now. The poker face game is weak with this one. Alan's sitting there thinking he wanted to know about family relationships, but everything looks suspicious as hell. Since this is a royal family, the important stuff probably isn't shared with everyone. Just then, Harmon mentions there's going to be a banquet soon, asking if Alan is ready for it. Our boy straight up rejects the idea without even thinking about it. Harmon tries to persuade him, saying how Charlotte learned castle etiquette specifically for this moment so she wouldn't disappoint him. But nah, our boy still doesn't care. Harmon then asks our boy what he will do if Prince Lewin joins the banquet. Our boy, with that stupid confused face of his, straight up asks, who the hell is that? Harmon told him to look at the family tree and he'll surely find him there. He points at Lewin's photo, telling Alan that Lewin is his older brother, and more importantly, someone he has to be most careful of. Then we cut to Lewin, and this guy is having some serious issues. Ever since he heard they're throwing a banquet for Alan, he's been losing his mind. Then we cut to the day of the banquet, and the whole thing kicks off with your typical fancy feast, set-up musicians playing, food everywhere, and nobles doing their noble thing. The lords all smiles talking to Alice, saying how beautiful she's grown and she's putting on her best thank you so much face while internally freaking out. Turns out her grandfather specifically told her not to come to this banquet. She's having this whole flashback where her grandpa was absolutely losing his mind, yelling about how this banquet is for the prince. Alice is thinking, well, grandpa didn't show up because he's busy babysitting the first prince, so someone from our family should be here. Then Duke Fulmer enters the scene. He walks up to Alice, hits her with a "you're beautiful as always" line, then escalates it to "you're literally the reincarnation of the goddess Gaia." The nobles around them start gossiping immediately. They're whispering about how the Duke is super popular with women lately, which is weird because he's low-ranking by their standards. Someone mentions he's not interested in power and instead spends his time doing volunteer work. Man, these people are so deep in their power games that basic human decency confuses them. Alice overhears this trash talk and gets mad. Fulmer notices and tries to smooth things over. He explains that after his wife died, volunteering became his whole life purpose, then admits it's not quite aristocratic of him. Alice jumps in and loudly disagrees, saying he deserves respect. But then she starts having this internal crisis. She's thinking about how Fulmer is objectively a good dude. He served Lady Elisha back in the day. Now he's loyal to the first prince. He's always looking out for others, never chasing power. He's basically the ideal nobleman. So why does she feel so uncomfortable around him? She excuses herself to go greet other people because standing next to him is giving her bad vibes she can't explain. Meanwhile, we cut to these other lords, Janet and Grill, who are absolutely stressed. Janet's over here shaking and grinding his teeth, complaining about being dragged to this event as a lord from afar. Alice spots them and thinks, oh thank God, people I'm actually comfortable with. She walks over and greets them, and they're like, wait, you're the Archbishop's granddaughter? Janet says that he's only seen her from afar before. Just then, our boy Alan shows up looking serious, clutching some cloth in his hand like it's his emotional support blanket. He locks eyes with Duke Fulmer across the room, and Fulmer gives him this look. After the formal entrance, Alan sits down and he's genuinely shocked. He's thinking, wait, there are actually people here? This man had zero expectations. He figured since he's the prince with no rights to the throne, the one who got literally kicked out of the castle, that his banquet would be him, maybe 3 servants and a sad plate of crackers. But nope, the hall is packed. He looks over at Charlotte, who's just standing there looking lost, and asks why she's attracting so much attention. Charlotte's doing that thing where she keeps her hands behind her back and looks away. Alan's like, you just look more aristocratic than me. He asks if those lessons actually worked. Harmon chimes in, saying that the ability to present yourself can't just be learned in lessons, and Alan's like, wait, are you saying I don't have the ability to present myself? That's when Duke Fulmer walks up to them. He's all smiles, arms spread wide, and greets our boy. Alan looks at him like, who is this guy? And Harmon immediately goes into damage control mode. Harmon introduces the Duke and Fulmer laughs it off, saying it's totally fine that Alan doesn't remember him. It's been a while since they last met. Then he apologizes for not being there during Alan's difficult situations. Our boy shakes his hand and he's thinking about how the Duke used to serve his mother and now supports the first prince. He's one of the few people from his mom's circle that Alan actually remembers. Seems like a decent guy, but just then a system window pops up and drops all of this bastard's info. Turns out he is a vampire and he is currently thirsty. Alan is gripping Fulmer's hand while mentally freaking out. This bastard then starts giving off dark energy vibes, asking if Alan enjoyed the food at the banquet. Alan's trying to play it cool, saying, yeah, it was delicious, while internally freaking out because he just unconsciously released some sacred power. A vampire should be hissing and backing away from holy energy, but this dude is just standing there smiling. This bastard then leans in closer and says how it's been a long time since Alan had royal cuisine. And Alan's brain is going, hold up. Since when has this guy been in the castle? Then Alan notices it. The Duke is standing with his hands behind his back, and Alan's looking around the hall when he realizes people have red eyes. The system windows start popping up. Fulmer, still playing the polite noble, asks if Alan is looking for something. Our boy stands up from the sofa and says, oh yeah, I just remembered something that upset me during the meal. He then turns to a waiter and asks him to bring the alcohol as he grabs the bottle. Alan instantly turns the alcohol into holy water. So now our boy is standing there with this evil grin on his face, turning to Duke Fulmer like, hey buddy, why don't you have a drink too? And Fulmer, still playing Mr. Perfect Nobleman, quickly agrees. So now our boy is going, drink it, drink it, drink it, and show me your true vampire face. He's convinced Fulmer is the shadowy figure from that murder scene. The Duke picks up the glass and just chugs it. Then he's smiling, putting his hand on his head and saying, oh my, I think I'm already drunk. Alan's staring at him like, bro, you don't look drunk at all. So Alan does what any reasonable person would do. He grabs the entire bottle and asks, is that so? The crowd is looking over in shock like, what is the seventh prince doing? And before anyone can stop him, Alan smashes the bottle and stabs Fulmer's hand with a piece of glass at full force. Blood and glass fragments go flying everywhere. Harmon's screaming, your highness, what is going on? Because his boss just assaulted a Duke in front of everyone. Alan's staring at the wound in complete shock because the Duke is bleeding, shaking, holding his hand and asking Alan to please calm down. But how can he because the wound is healing? Vampires have crazy regeneration, right? So why is Fulmer just bleeding like a normal human? Harmon goes into full damage control mode. He covers Alan, apologizing profusely, saying, I'm so sorry. The seventh prince is clearly drunk. Then he turns to Fulmer and tells him to go get his wound treated immediately. Once there's someone alone, Harmon is speedwalking with Alan asking, why did you do that? Charlotte's asking if Alan really sensed something wrong with the Duke. And Alan says, yeah, he looked like a vampire to me. They're both staring at him in shock like, wait. Harmon says that if he is right, then they need to catch him ASAP. But our boy told him that it's pointless because they don't have proof. And then he orders Harmon to bring him a pen and paper. Meanwhile, Duke Fulmer is sprinting down the corridor. He runs into a room, closes the door, covers his mouth, and immediately starts to spill everything all over the floor. Turns out the holy water did work, just on a delayed timer. He's clutching his bloody mouth, thinking it was a curse. Then this dude's true form starts showing. He is thinking about how our boy figured out who this bastard really is. He's coughing up blood, thinking, I need to cut out all my burned organs. I need new blood and fresh meat right now. And perfect time, a maid named Milia shows up saying she's here to clean his room. This bastard invites her in. She walks into the room apologizing for the interruption, and he's like, no need to apologize, clean as you please. Yeah, that maid is 100% about to become vampire food. The scene shifts, and we see other maids looking at the Duke's open door, greeting him as he walks out. Fulmer is adjusting his jacket, smiling, and saying what a very good dinner it was. He comments on how busy they must be because of the banquet, and the maids are like, aw, you're the only one who worries about us. He casually mentions that the maid Milia works so well that he's thinking of hiring her to his estate. He asks them to convey his request to the Chamberlain. The maids are all excited, saying, oh wow, working for someone like you would be amazing. Milia would be so happy. Meanwhile, we know that Milia is probably dead in that room, and this dude just ate her. As Fulmer walks away laughing, saying there's nothing special about his estate, one maid points out that the banquet hall is the other way. He stops and says he's not going back to the banquet, he's going to visit Luanto, give an evening greeting. Then we cut to our boy. He's holding a piece of paper and says that he's written everything down. Harmon looks at it and asks, is it really that many? Alan's looking at this list like he's checking his grocery shopping and says, these are only the ones I saw on the first floor. Charlotte points out there are a lot of aristocrats present, and Harmon says that while they can't prove anyone's a vampire, at least none of them are parents. So it's not the worst situation. Alan looks confused and asks, what do parents mean? Harmon explains it, saying basically, in the vampire evolution process, if someone is vampire instead of being turned, they're called parents, like that vampire Duke they defeated before. These parents are the ones who create other vampires, and their specialty is hiding among humans. Alan asks if they can really hide even from sacred powers, and Harmon says yes, these freaks can change bodies with people they've killed. Alan crushes the paper in his hand, then he turns to Harmon and asks if he has a pretty high position in society. Harmon looks confused but says yeah, he's high-ranking enough to command a group of knights. Our boy then orders him to catch everyone on this list first, figure out the situation, and kill them if necessary. Harmon takes a quick look at the list and then turns to Charlotte, saying he'll take full responsibility, but Alan cuts him off, asking why Harmon's only worried about him. He should worry about himself. Since they can't prove who's a vampire, they'll kill suspects first and watch if they turn to ash. He adds that the Duke has probably already figured out that Alan exposed him, so if they don't hurry, he'll be in danger. Without wasting a second, he agrees. Before going, Charlotte tells Alan to be careful as they leave. Alan's watching his subordinates go, thinking, okay, now I just need to hidey. Just then an idiot with a red head calls out to him. So this idiot walks up to Alan, turns out it's his older brother. The system window pops up showing Lupel's stats, and man, this guy's character sheet is wild. He's cunning, insanely good with a spear, trusting, but also afraid of everything. The window says he'll definitely become the next emperor based on his mama. Alan's reading this thinking, what's with these contradictory-ass characteristics? Dude's both trusting and cunning? Pick a lane, bro. Lupel smiles, puts his hand on his chest all dramatic-like, and asks if Alan really lost his memory and how sad he is. Before he could begin explaining himself, Alan cuts him off mid-sentence and goes, you're the third prince, right? Lupel raises his hands with this smile, and Alan's thinking about how Harmon warned him about this guy. Apparently, this idiot is a mama's boy, and with that stupid personality of his, he has almost zero divine presence. Lupel yawns, bringing his fist to his mouth all casual, and says it seems like Alan hasn't completely forgotten him after all. Alan doesn't confirm or deny. He just mentions that Harmon told him about Lupel. The third prince smiles and says, sure, let's go with that story. Then he says that none of the other brothers showed up to today's banquet. Alan should be upset, though they must have more important things to do. Alan smirks, thinking this dude's clearly trying to piss him off. Our boy turns to his brother and says one brother is enough. Lupel arrogantly puts his hand on his hip and explains he was only able to come because his schedule happened to be free today. Then this bastard's smile turns ominous. He leans in and says if our boy came to the castle aiming for the throne, it could easily become enemies. Alan's looking at the hand on his shoulder, getting more annoyed by the second. Lupel tells him to just keep living the way he's been living, then turns away, raises his hand in a dismissive wave, and says he's leaving. Alan watches him go, thinking that even if he weren't here, Lupel still wouldn't become the next emperor. Then he completely forgets about this fool and focuses on his actual mission. Our boy starts walking away, reminding himself that since he doesn't know how strong Fulmer really is, he needs to conserve his energy. The plan is simple. Hide until Harmon and Charlotte finish their job as he was about to bolt. Alan instantly stops when he hears his name being called across the entire hall. It's Luan telling Alan to come out immediately. So now our boy is standing there thinking what kind of idiot the original 7th prince was for everyone to hate him. Our boy turns and sees that it's Luan that was screaming on top of his lungs. Just then a system window pops up with all of Luan's info, and his characteristics are a bit concerning. He is both generous and Klupel. Due to that incident, he has now got a rotting body, but bro is a master swordsman and also has the qualifications to be a wise ruler, but also the qualifications to become a tyrant. And oh yeah, and most crazy of all, he wants to kill our boy for ruining his mother's reputation. Alan stares at him, thinking the rotten smell and magical power coming off this guy are absolutely insane. Luan is somehow still alive while basically living in a corpse. His willpower alone deserves respect because staying conscious in that condition. That takes some serious mental fortitude. Before Alan can process any of this, Luan quickly grabs him by the shirt without warning. He looks at our boy and says, how dare Alan insult his subordinate? The Count served their mother, and there's no way Alan doesn't know that. Why does he constantly insult good people and do everything possible to go against Luan? The first prince, coughing up blood from his mouth, furiously asks why Alan continues to trash their mother's honor. Just then the old man walks in. Seeing this scene, he asks what the hell they're doing. Kelt looks at the scene and asks again why no one's answering him. Then this dude sends a stream of light energy forward like a warning shot and demands to know what's happening. Alan grits his teeth, raises his hand against the powerful energy wave, and thinks even the Emperor's voice contains massive amounts of divine power. The Emperor glares at Luan, who's still coughing up blood, and addresses him by his royal status. Kelt looks to the side with this serious expression and orders the Archbishop and other doctors to take Luan away immediately and help him. Then he turns his attention to Alan and asks him to explain himself. He heard that the 7th prince insulted the Duke of Fulmer. Is that actually true? Alan looks to the side with a serious expression and confirms it's true. The Emperor asks what the reason was. Our boy's looking ahead in confusion, thinking I can't exactly say I was hunting him because he's a vampire and not trying to insult him. For a second he wonders, should I just tell the truth? But nah, Kelt would never believe that. Alan goes with the safe option and says he drank too much, so he was in the wrong. Then the old man looks down at our boy and asks if that's all he has to say. Looking at that annoyed expression of his, our boy is thinking, what kind of reaction is this? Why does it feel like he was expecting a different answer? That's when Luan, still leaning on a table for support, rises from the floor and tells everyone to shut up. He grabs a glass with his hand and throws it at our boy. Putting his hand on his wound, he asks for forgiveness for his rudeness, but explains that Alan insulted his man and he can't just let him go for that, so he wants to duel our boy for his honor. The old man turns to him, asking if he really is in his right mind. He wants to duel Alan in his condition. Then he just walks away, saying he'll give Alan a punishment after sorting out the whole situation. Luan looks at the Emperor and refuses to rest. He brings up how the Emperor generously thanked Alan for what happened at the Ronia estate, then says that he too wanted to see Alan's true nature. After this fight, he can know for sure whether he really can hunt vampires or did he just steal the spotlight. Luan calmly says, "Aren't you curious too?" Basically guilt-tripping the Emperor into approving a death match. Royal politics at their finest, folks. Raphael's panicking. He turns to the Emperor, insisting they stop this madness, but the Emperor turns away and leaves. Luan, with his half-dead body, turns to our boy and says that the Holy Emperor has approved their duel. He points at Alan, saying he'll rid him of arrogance. Alan's just standing there thinking, nobody even asked me if I wanted to fight. Up on the balcony, nobles are whispering. One says, the 7th prince is up to his old tricks again. Another suggests leaving before things get worse. Grill drunkenly shouts, our 7th prince might be a freak, but he's a good guy. Janet immediately covers his mouth, apologizing to Lady Alice. But Alice isn't listening, she's focused on Alan. She noticed that our boy passed Harmon a note before the duel. She's curious about its content. Right now, she only knows that it may be important. She grips the railing, piecing things together, then says, I'm going down first, determined to prevent any casualties, which is adorable, considering one brother's half-rotted and the other just started a vampire purge. Alan's standing there with a stick, wondering why he's stuck in a family this dysfunctional. He looks at Luan, who looks ready to drop dead, thinking, they're really letting him fight like this. But the Emperor doesn't care. The Archbishop's useless too. The Archbishop then explains the rules of the duel. The use of the sacred power is forbidden because Luan's body can't handle it, and Alan supposedly killed a vampire without relying on it. So this is a test of his martial skills. Standing there, our boy is freaking out, thinking, wait, I only use sacred power. I don't even know how to use a sword. Then he starts cursing his situation, thinking how those who can protect him aren't even here. Knowing fighting is the only way out, he grips his sword and turns to Luan. Luan smirks, asking if Alan's ready. The Emperor gives the signal telling both of them to respect the Brotherhood, and with that, the duel between our boy and the half-dead prince began. Alan charges forward and immediately drops to his feet and shouts, I surrender. Everyone freezes. He even folds his hands like he's praying and declares loudly, I surrender to Luan because I am very afraid of him. The Emperor angrily hits his own face with his hand, thinking, did Alan do this because he didn't want to fight, or because he was worried about Luan's condition? It doesn't matter what the reason was and just calls Alan a fool. Alan says, you asked us to respect each other because we're brothers, which is technically true, but also the most cowardly interpretation possible. Luan loses it. He breaks his weapon, calling Alan a freaking trash. He then says how our boy first humiliated his man and was now looking down at him because he was half dead. Then Luan starts throwing curses at our boy, and our boy genuinely looks surprised. He basically goes, brother, think about your princely dignity. But Luan is past reason. He charges up sacred energy and attacks. Alan panics, thinking if I don't block this, I'll explode. He looked past Luan to see if the old man had any intention of stopping this now, but nah, he was just standing there. Then, out of nowhere, he summons a shovel. People stare. Someone says, is that spatial magic? The other guy replies that it can't be because he didn't sense any mana. Alan's blocking his brother's blows with his shovel, thinking how is Luan even still standing with such a body? He is sure that if they continue this, Luan will be in danger. Then he quickly looks at Duke Fulmer standing in the crowd with an amazed look. The Duke grins, looking through the crowd. Alan realizes that all of this is that bastard's doing. Alan tightens his grip, thinking how everything will end if he kill that bastard. He apologizes to Luan, gathers divine power into his shovel, and yells, smashing his brother back in a burst of light and smoke. Then he shouts, I'll take revenge on your enemies. With that, the half-dead prince falls to the floor, blood flying from his mouth. Then our boy pulls out another weapon from his inventory. This time it was a gun. He takes aim with his rifle and pulls the trigger. Raphael panics, telling the Emperor he should stop them. Even if the weapon can't kill, shooting at such a distance is still dangerous. Alan points the weapon at Luan, saying this is on behalf of Gaia. Then he pulls the trigger, sending the shot directly at the Duke. The shot connects and nearly blows that bastard's head off when it didn't finish the job. Our boy is cursing internally, thinking how the shot didn't have enough power because he only prayed for a shot time, so to finish the job, he needs to shoot again. Luan, lying on the floor, screams that our boy has gone crazy. The Emperor orders the knights to stop Alan. These guys immediately go in and grab our boy. He starts yelling that he hasn't finished yet, thinking he only needs to shoot once more. If he shoots again, he'll definitely be able to kill the Duke. Meanwhile, Luan's on the floor. He is having flashbacks when the Emperor approaches him, saying that our boy is different from before and asks him if he noticed it too. Luan nods, saying he suddenly remembered what Harmon said that day, that Alan was deliberately acting like an idiot to get kicked out of the castle to get revenge for his mother. After seeing his abilities, Luan can believe those words. Therefore, Luan wants to confirm that Alan really has the necessary qualities to be a holy emperor. Luan puts his fist on his forehead and addresses the emperor, saying that, as he can see, he will soon die. He holds out his hand with blood on his palm, saying he wants to do whatever it takes to free himself from the curse and become the next emperor, but he's reached his limit. If he wants to get revenge on the nobles who laughed at their mother, calling her a person of low status, that needs to happen, and for that to happen, he needs to make Alan the next holy emperor. But he still can't understand why our boy wanted to kill the Duke. This doesn't make sense. If he wanted to ridicule Luan, he would have been the target. For some reason, Alan is simply obsessed with the Duke. He doesn't know the reason, but it's clear Alan had purpose. But then Raphael chimes in, saying how Luan urgently needs help. The Emperor agrees, saying they'll discuss the rest later, then asks if anyone knows where Harmon is. Alice looks surprised and says he left the banquet hall during the duel and never returned. Then the old man asks where the Duke is. Raphael says the Duke was taken to chambers for assistance. The old man orders him to bring the Duke to him. Raphael asks him what he is planning to do with the wounded man. He says that it was because of Alan that the Duke got injured, so he is planning to heal him himself. But then his expression changes real quick, and he says that he'll just dump a lot of holy power into his head. Then we cut to our boy. He was back in a cell. Is someone keeping the count of how many times he has been thrown into the prison? Standing there, he is thinking about how he only managed to hurt that bastard and couldn't finish the job. What if the Duke is now walking around the castle killing servants again? Then he realizes how the castle has gone quiet. He wonders if Harmon and Charlotte failed to complete the task. He thinks about how the Duke was confidently walking around the banquet hall, and these vampires still have secret powers. Being in the sacred castle is like being in the enemy's house, which means that they probably have a manual for escaping bad situations. As he was thinking about that, our boy realizes another problem. Even if Harmon gets to those bastards, being a knight, he can't exactly hurt the nobles. Plus, these guys have people to protect them. Just then, the idiot prince from before walks in. He starts going on about how he saw his duel and said how it was a shame to see brothers fight. But this bastard was looking way too happy, saying that as our boy was busy cursing him internally. Then he realizes that this idiot is also a prince, which means he has the right to let him out. He then politely asked him if he could, maybe help him get out of here. Lupel asks why he would do that. What if the Holy Emperor reprimands him for letting Alan out? Alan smiles, asking if Luan isn't in critical condition now, so he wants to go and visit the prince, and if he lets him out of here, he'll owe him one. Seeing that this idiot still had no intention of helping our boy, he changes the tactic and says if he lets him out, he'll see something very interesting. We cut to a little while later. Lupel not only helped our boy get out of prison, but also brought him to the weapons warehouse. Our boy remembered how the third prince, smiling, pointed to the side and said loudly that Alan should visit Luan and not forget to take his gift. Coming out of his memories, our boy asked himself what he should do now. In the Imperial Palace, he doesn't have anyone who could help him. He thinks the vampires have already finished sharing information with each other. And since he should be in prison right now, he can just walk freely inside the castle, so he'll need the help of someone with more power than him that everyone trusts. And who's better to do that than his undead squad? He used his skill and summoned his army. He was about to send them, but first he ordered them to cover their faces with armor. And these guys immediately started putting on a fashion show. Meanwhile, our boy was thinking to himself, saying how he wanted to quietly sort everything out, but those vampires keep messing with him. He's going to visit the first prince. The maids cover their mouths, asking them to stop, wondering what's wrong with those soldiers. The seventh prince has started a rebellion. Alan quickly runs toward the knights. He orders the knights not to kill anyone but simply clear the way. Someone says loudly that our boy is heading to the first prince's room. The knights attack, clearing the way. Alan looks back, saying this is very good. Knights yell that he's heading to the first prince's room and needs to be stopped. Our boy enters Luan's room and immediately starts throwing out these masked guys. They are begging our boy not to do that, as they haven't finished treating the first prince. Our boy smiles and orders the zombie to close the door and make sure no one comes in. Alan stops in front of the door without saying anything. Luan looks at our boy and asks what he's doing. Our boy looks at him and says he didn't want to do this, saying how he should have let him go before because of Luan. The vampire hunt failed. Luan asks him if he's talking about Duke Fulmer. Alan asks in surprise if he really knew about this. Luan says from the look of him, something was really going on, but the priest confirmed everything was fine. Alan asks him if he is sure they checked everything well. Those vampires have human skin and are hard to tell apart from humans unless their heads are blown off. He asks him if he doesn't think it would be hard for ordinary priests to tell those vampires apart from humans. Then our boy looks at Luan and says that as long as they're sitting here, this castle is simply filled with vampires. Luan asks why our boy didn't tell him he was a vampire. Alan asks if Luan will believe him if he did. Luan clutches the blanket with his hand and says if our boy showed them his true self and told the truth, they would believe him. Alan looks away and asks what he means by telling the truth. If Luan wants the truth, then he no longer wants to be associated with this family or the vampires. Our boy puts on a mask and quickly raises the shovel, saying Luan should pay for everything he suffered till now as he stabs him with the shovel. At the same time, Raphael quickly runs down the corridor asking what's going on. A knight told him that our boy has somehow amassed an army and has captured the first prince's room. The archbishop asks how they allowed this to happen after he left his post for just a minute. Raphael, looking at the crowded knights, calls them fools. The archbishop strikes the knights, asking how they could be worse than this old man. He looks in surprise at the fallen body of the undead. Raphael, looking at the zombie, wonders if this is really a dead man. Did the seventh prince control the dead? He wonders if that good-for-nothing, useless, idiotic prince had turned to the dark arts. Looking at the undead, he thinks about how these guys aren't like the normal undead. They are overflowing with divine power. He thinks about how these creatures contradict the laws of this world. It's absolutely impossible to create something like this, even with magic. He then turns to the knights and orders them to block off the corridor and capture this hall, and orders them to make sure none of the soldiers leave. The archbishop thinks he must first save the first prince. Raphael instantly strikes the knights with his staff. The undead falls to the floor looking at them. He needs to find the person who summoned them. Just then these undead start turning into dust. Raphael starts looking around in surprise, asking what's happening. Then he turns and runs towards Luan's room. As he enters the room, he sees our boy hitting the first prince's body with a shovel. Our boy thrusts the shovel into the bloody body and says it could be said that Luan has paid him with his death, and now that the debt has been repaid, he'll now resurrect him. Luan was having this internal monologue about how every time that bastard would visit him, he'd only badmouth our boy. He had told Luan that Alan spoke about his low status and insulted their mother. He's thinking how he should have suspected that Fulmer was telling him these things on purpose when he immediately came to report what happened at the banquet hall. He's thinking about how the reason he didn't suspect Fulmer is because he had been with him since he was young. Fulmer was the only one who supported him after losing his mother, so because of this he didn't realize the Duke was actually a vampire. He finally realized how big of a fool he was and could understand why Alan wanted to kill him. As our boy stabs him with the shovel, his soul leaves his body, but without wasting a single second, our boy quickly casts Gaia's blessing and uses his necromancer powers, performing the resurrection ritual. And what do you know? It was a success. The soul returns to Luan's body, and in the next second, this idiot was completely fine. He's unwrapping his bandages, thinking how his body no longer hurts and how he can breathe easily. Meanwhile, our boy is standing there smiling, asking Luan how he's feeling. Tearing one bandage after the other, Luan replies, saying how his skin, bones, and muscles have returned, which could only mean one thing, that the curse has been lifted. But bro did it in a manner that's going to haunt our boy for the rest of his life. Then we cut to some time later. Luan is getting dressed while sprinting off to somewhere because our boy had asked him to find Harmon for him and finish what he had started. Luan wanted nothing more than to punch him because of that, but couldn't, the whole savior thing. The scene then shifts, and we see Harmon and Charlotte standing in front of a door arguing with a knight. Just then, Luan places his hand on Harmon's shoulder. As he turns, he gets surprised seeing Luan standing next to him, all fine. The knight quickly bows, and Harmon is still all surprised, asking him if his curse has been lifted. Luan tells him that they can talk about it later and orders him to show the list. Harmon gets all surprised, and before he could come up with some excuse, Luan tells him that our boy had already told him everything. Harmon quickly shows him the list, and Luan gets surprised to see so many names. He says how things could get complicated. Harmon nods and then apologizes for not killing these bastards soon enough. But Luan told him not to worry about that, as it just makes things easier for him. He'll kill all these bastards in one go. He then uses his royal authority and summons the Order of the Red Cross, maybe instantly or sometime after, as he said that, these scary-looking dudes with blood-red sickle to show up ready for a massacre. Looking at them, Harmon starts thinking about how the Red Order is made up of soldiers specially trained to kill the apostles and heretics, and these guys only take orders from the royal family, making them the greatest military power of the empire. Luan shows them the list, telling them how these guys are the target of today's hunt. They're the enemies of the Holy Empire as well as the culprits behind his mother's death, so they are not to spare a single one. Then the scene shifts and the actual hunt begins, and man, these guys live up to their scary title, not stopping to get permission. What's that? They sent the damn knight flying through the door. A man looks at the body in surprise. Before he could get into the "do you know who I am" thing, these guys moved forward and sliced off that bastard's head clean off. A man from the Red Cross catches the head with his hand, looks at the bright flame enveloping it, and basically goes, "Yep, that's demonic magic," which confirms that people mentioned in this list are vampires, and orders his assistants to kill everyone. And folks, that's what happens. They start killing everyone in sight. Vampires are running to the sides yelling. Harmon walks up to Luan and tells him that it seems Fulmer isn't here. He says we have to find him and catch him now. Luan looks in his direction, saying there's no need to worry about him, because he has something special planned for him, and man, it was true. The scene shifts to the Emperor sitting on his throne with this look, asking this poor bastard if he really is a vampire. Man, the look on his face right now is hilarious. Standing there, Fulmer is mentally having a full-blown panic attack, thinking, how the hell did things get this bad? When he first heard the Holy Emperor wanted to personally treat him because he got hurt by our boy, Fulmer was ready to politely decline like any reasonable vampire would. But then Celt raises his hand with this absolutely terrifying look on his face and asks if he's being too blunt. The Emperor then gets close to him, saying how if the Duke was just some regular dude, he'd ask for forgiveness later. But if Fulmer turns out to be a vampire, you won't be able to let him walk out of here alive. Fulmer asks the old man if he's doubting the priests. Celt says he hopes Fulmer will help him out so he can actually trust somebody for once. The Duke looks up, turns to his majesty, and suddenly he's hearing death from all directions. There's hunting and chasing going on. People are fleeing the palace left and right. This whole thing should have ended peacefully after Fulmer threw the 7th prince behind bars, but nope. Now somehow vampires are the ones being hunted like animals. Fulmer looks away, thinking he needs to get the hell out of here ASAP. The problem is, being detained by the Emperor himself makes that whole escape plan pretty damn difficult. And the old man isn't making it easy. He's staring at him, telling this bastard to look at him. Meanwhile, Fulmer's mentally scanning the room. No weapons, no holy knights anywhere in sight. He knows the Emperor is the legendary hero who killed Aemon. But right now, he's just an old man. Unlike vampires with their immortality, Celt's just a living creature with limited time. And Fulmer, who's almost reached the level of a parent-class vampire, figures maybe just maybe this would be easy. Man, this is something that could feature in Dumb Ways to Die. The Duke starts laughing. The Emperor looks at him like, why are you laughing? Did I say something funny? Fulmer bends forward and just loses it, laughing his ass off. Then he straight up calls him just an old man. He then accepts that he's a vampire. And then this bastard bites down on his own hand, saying how since he's a vampire, he doesn't have to respect some old geezer like him. As his hand rapidly regenerates, he starts laughing like a maniac, saying how he's a predator who'll eat him today. He sends his newly transformed hand toward the Emperor, and he manages to capture him. But in the next second, the old man calmly walks out of there with this absolutely terrifying aura radiating from his eyes. This bastard looks at him and mentally goes, what the hell is the deal with this old man? In the next second, Celt rips his hand off and charges straight at him. With just one punch, he sends Fulmer flying straight into the wall. Walking up to him, he asks Fulmer, who isn't even a parent-level vampire, what made him believe in himself so much. He reminds him how he killed Aemon, asking him if he really thought that he couldn't handle one simple vampire. He asks him if he forgot who he was, and then, without wasting a second, he rips off his head. The Emperor looks at Fulmer's head in his hands and goes, yeah, it does seem like you're stronger than the others. Then looking him straight in the eyes, he tells him not to die yet, as he still has to figure out the truth behind Alucia's death, and then casually mentions that from now on, he'll experience a fate worse than death. Then we cut to the idiot redhead and his mom. She's asking him if he really helped our boy escape. The 3rd prince, looking sad, says he wasn't trying to help him. The next thing you know, a vase smacks his head. Darina slams her hands on the table and yells that she told him to sit and do nothing. She grabs him by his clothes and shouts that he ruined everything. Then she suddenly stops with a puzzled look, turns forward and loudly apologizes, asking if he's hurt. She hugs him with tears in her eyes, saying she loves him so very much. She says she's only trying to make Lupel the next emperor, and only then will the 3rd prince truly matter to anyone. The 3rd prince opens his eyes and says he's not the one of low birth from Alucia's bloodline. Darina turns to her beloved firstborn and asks if he understands his mother. Lupel agrees with her, saying he'll definitely become the next emperor. Man, this family is toxic as hell. Then we cut to 3 weeks later at the legal bureau of the Holy Empire. Everything's finished. Half the people on that vampire list got killed on the very day the hunt began. The remaining vampires were executed in the public square. Some of the vampires were secretly added to experimental materials that kept getting updated. The incident that went down in the capital of the Holy Empire became big news, and talk about it spread throughout the entire continent. But more importantly, the appearance of someone who could see vampires caused serious waves across the country. And guess who's suddenly in the spotlight? Our boy's now famous for all the wrong reasons. Raphael extends his hand and loudly orders everyone to shut up. He announces that from now on, there will be a meeting regarding Alan. And our boy just looks forward with this absolutely puzzled expression, probably thinking, why is my life like this? Alan raises his hand and asks for forgiveness, wondering what the hell this interrogation is even about. The Archbishop starts explaining how our boy led soldiers and destroyed part of the Imperial Palace, violating the laws of the Holy Empire. Our boy smiles, thinking maybe I should just lock him up and toss him in the same cage with those vampires. The old man turns to Raphael and says he doesn't understand a word of what the Archbishop just said. He asks him what specific laws our boy actually violated. Raphael looks away and says Alan was leading the knights without permission, so he'll be convicted of rebellion. Lewin interrupts him, saying that in case of an emergency, everyone related to the Emperor by blood has the right to lead their knights. He smiles and says there's nothing wrong with what our boy did. Besides, Lewin's the person who was directly involved in this whole mess, and the Holy Emperor is fine, so what's the problem? Alan thinks with this tired look, will the family really protect their own? He's got this weird feeling they're actually trying to help him out. Lewin raises his hand, closing his eyes, and says if there's a problem with this, he'll simply call the Inquisitors again to find out what Alan's real intentions were. The old man then chimes in. He says they'll find out if Alan really wanted to start a rebellion or if this is just Raphael's personal beef with our boy. Kelt turns to the Archbishop and asks if he's right. Raphael angrily points his staff forward and yells for them to stop. He says how this was all for the show and how he was about to give Alan credit for getting rid of the vampires and reward him for that. Both Luam and the old man cover their mouths with their hands, shaking while holding back laughter. Raphael asks with pure anger, how dare they mock the Archbishop like this? Alan looks away with a smile, thinking it's true there will be an awards ceremony after this. As he was about to move to the next thing, he paused for a second. The assistant turns to him, asking if something's really wrong. Raphael looks at our boy and says before finishing this interrogation, he'd like to ask the seventh prince a question. Alan looks away in surprise. The Archbishop then turns to our boy and straight up asks him if he's really using necromancy. Our boy looks away, thinking how he was sure that he would ask him that, but mentally he's cursing. Why would the Archbishop of all people know about the Walking Dead? Alan's sure both the Holy Emperor and Luan also know about this, but they are keeping it quiet because they don't want this matter to become public. So our boy straight up lies to his face, saying it's impossible. Raphael raises his hand to the side and says there's information. Our boy asks in surprise, who is it? Did any of the priests present really see it with their own eyes? The Archbishop tells him to stop lying. He looks to the side and says there were healers and holy knights. He tied up those dead people on purpose so they couldn't escape, but later they found the dead people had simply disappeared, and they saw those undead following our boy's orders. The Archbishop then turns to our boy and asks him if he's really going to keep lying when they have so much evidence. Alan raises his hand to the side and says there were many vampires in the Imperial Castle that day. They could have used tricks to deceive the healers and holy knights. The Archbishop squeezes his staff tightly and says loudly that might have worked with those knights, but an Archbishop like him couldn't be fooled. Alan looks at him, thinking it's true what they're talking about holy undead here. A priest who's never seen them in person wouldn't be able to believe it, so our boy can still lie to them right now. If only he could be friends with Raphael. Our boy raises his hand and asks if he's really interested. He looks forward and asks if he can tell him the truth. The Archbishop extends his hand toward him, asking if he's really going to confess to what he did. Alan lowers his head, raises it, and goes nope. Then we cut to some time after our boy walks out of the castle and the best girl, Charlotte, is waiting for him outside. Then, handing him a robe, she asked him how he is doing since he's been in bed for the past 3 weeks. It must be hard keeping up with such a busy schedule like today. Our boy smiles, adjusts his jacket, and says he's fine except for being a little sleepy. At that moment, he realized how after he used the skull of Aemon, he had to spend 3 weeks in bed. He didn't know the punishment for reviving would be so severe. Just then, Harmon walks up to our boy. Our boy's face lights up as he sees him because he has a favor to ask him. He tells him how in the last fight his shovel broke, so he wanted Harmon to get him a new one. Harmon asks our boy if he really is going to keep using shovels in the future. Alan says his hand's gotten used to the shovel because all this time he's been doing nothing but digging, so there's nothing he can do about it. The deputy asks with a surprised face if that's really the reason. Why doesn't our boy just make a new one? Alan asks with confusion, really? A new weapon? Then he starts explaining how in the northwest there's a mine where metal and magic stones are found. This is Hilda's territory, the lands ruled by the first princess. This region is called the largest weapon empire. They signed a contract with dwarves to create various things. If our boy goes there, he'll be able to buy not only ordinary weapons, but also magical ones. Alan asks if that means he can make a musket too. Our boy smiles, looks at Charlotte, and tells her to remember to like the video and help Memoru to make juicy content and activate that cheeky little bell. And I'm out.